Chapter 1601. Thinking about it, Xiaohua had only met Fairy Hongxia once in the Kai family of Luyang. Even though she had the intention to protect him at that time, it was because he had sent Kai Zhuoxia's corpse back home. At that time, he was just a mediocre 4th-layer qi refining cultivator. How could he enter Fairy Hongxia's eyes? Now, even though Xiaohua had already become a 12th-layer qi refining cultivator and was a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect, but among the dozens of cultivators in front of him, which one of them did not have a higher cultivation than Xiaohua? Which sect did not have a stronger background than Xiaohua? After thinking about it, Xiaohua's interest waned. His head drooped and he looked very listless as he walked behind the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect, waiting to enter the Bright Realm. Dao Jing and the cultivator who had led the disciples of the Huanhua sect over just now each took out a yellow talisman from their bosoms and activated their magic power. The yellow talisman let out a clear cry and spiraled up like a flying crane. It was thrown into the Bright Realm in midair. Immediately, there was a soft dang sound, like the sound of a bell. Between the white clouds at the bottom of the Bright Realm, there was a 5-colored brilliance. Every brilliance condensed into a bridge, slowly extending to the feet of everyone. "Seniors, please." Dao Jing cupped his hands and said. He was the first to step onto the Bridge of Light. Just like how he entered the Yanlei Palace, the Bridge of Light slowly shrank and pulled Dao Jing's figure into the white clouds. As Dao Jing stepped onto the Bridge of Light, Zhenqing, Wei Chongxi, Xiongfei and the others looked at each other. They also took a step forward and entered the Bridge of Light. The Bridge of Light was not fast, and there was no defensive brilliance on it. Xiaohua's figure slowly rose along with the Bridge of Light. The strong mountain wind blew his clothes up. His heart that had been heated up just now gradually cooled down. He raised his eyes and looked at the Bridge of Light that was not too far away from him. Fairy Hongxia and Yun Jiechong were almost completely leaning against each other. Xiaohua's mouth revealed a trace of a bitter smile. This Yun Jiechong is a man of striking appearance. Not only is he a talent in cultivation, he is also from a cultivator's family. Now they are even fellow disciples of the same sect. What am I? I am just a rogue cultivator. Even if... Sigh, what am I thinking? He was just a toad. Even if you have a bit of a cultivation base, when Kai Zhuoxia met Li Zongbao, the two of them clearly had feelings for each other. However, because of certain things, neither of them could confide in the other. How could the matters of the world be resolved simply by mutual love? Xiaohua was in a bad mood, so the bystanders naturally ignored him. However, Sun Shu, who was not far from him, could see clearly. Sun Shu was very curious about Xiaohua. From Xue Xue's mouth, Sun Shu knew that Xue Xue relied on Xiaohua to pass the disciple selection. Sun Shu originally thought that Xiaohua and Xue Xue had some kind of relationship, but when he heard that the two had only met twice, he couldn't help but be surprised. Although Sun Shu didn't have much experience in the outside world, he had heard from many disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect that the disciple selection process was very cruel. Even blood brothers had to be separated, let alone strangers. Of course, what Sun Shu was most dissatisfied with was Xiaohua's cultivation level. He actually advanced from the middle of the 10th layer to the early stage of the 12th layer in such a short time. This was simply impossible for a loose cultivator in her impression. A few days ago, Xiaohua actually risked his life to save her from the claws of the flying leopard beast. This made her thoroughly recognize Xiaohua's true colors. This person was indeed different from other cultivators. He seems to be really mysterious. Sun Shu stole a glance at the unwell Xiaohua and thought. The flying technique he used before was different from the one he used in the illusion. It seems to be the lightning evasion technique. He's only a cultivator at the early stage of the 12th layer. How could he practice the lightning evasion technique? He looks very dispirited. What's going on? When everyone reached the Bright Realm, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth that assaulted their faces shook their spirits. The spiritual qi here was more than twice as dense as what they usually saw. Xiongfei released his divine sense and took a look. He smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist Dao Jing, why is the spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the Bright Realm so dense? There doesn't seem to be any spirit veins nearby." Indeed, the formations around the Bright Realm don't have any traces of spirit gathering. I am also very surprised. Wei Chengxi also said while twirling his beard. Could it be that Senior Wei is also a formation expert? I've been disrespectful. Dao Jing didn't answer in a hurry and instead asked in surprise. Wei Chengxi had a trace of pride on his face. He smiled and said, Not at all, not at all. I only learned a little from my sex martial uncle for a few days. Hearing this, not to mention Dao Jing, even Zhenqing, Xiong Fei, and the others had a trace of admiration on their faces. That's right, the study of formations wasn't something that ordinary cultivators could come into contact with. On the Daybreak continent, talisman masters, pill masters, and tool refiners were already scarce, not to mention masters who were proficient in even more profound formations. Xiaohua stood behind everyone, and suddenly understood why the Deacon of Lightning Hall didn't dare to disturb the sex formation master when he closed the formation in the eastern ridge. He also understood why the Lightning Tablet Taoist had to give in to the arrogance of the Swallow Thunder Ridge. Junior will keep everyone in suspense. Seniors, please take a look and see why the spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the bright realm is so dense. Dao Jing put away his envy and said with a smile, Let's go, we'll talk as we walk. Show off. Show off again. Xiaohua, who was at the back, disapproved of what he heard. Following the slow pace of everyone, he let out a cold snort. Sure enough, Zhenqing, Xiong Fei, and Wei Chengxi had a trace of awkwardness on their faces. They looked at each other and released their spiritual sense as they walked. However, after walking for a while and looking around the bright realm, they all shook their heads. Wei Chengxi said with some hesitation, Could it be that the bright realm's formation is a bit strange? It is a bit strange, but that's not the real reason. Dao Jing said with a smile. There's a spirit vein in the mountain below us? Xiong Fei stamped his feet and asked. Dao Jing shook his head. Even if there is a spirit vein, isn't it too small? Xiong Fei was a bit uncomfortable, and turned to look at Zhenqing, who was pondering with her head lowered. Zhenqing didn't release her spiritual sense after scanning the surroundings earlier. At this moment, her head was lowered and she was looking at the ground. What's strange about the ground? Xiong Fei also lowered her head naturally. The ground below everyone's feet was grayish-brown soil mixed with gravel. There were some indiscernible radiances on the soil that seemed to be some reinforced formations. Why would there be formations on the ground for no reason? They might as well use some limestone or white jade to pave the ground. Xiong Fei couldn't see the reason and muttered in his heart. Senior Zhen? Seeing that Zhenqing seemed to have understood something, Dao Jing asked in a low voice. Yes, I have thought about it for a long time and feel that what fellow Taoist Wei and fellow Taoist Xiong said is reasonable. Our sects also have paradises, but if there isn't a spirit vein, then there is a formation. Without these two, there is only a spirit eye. Could it be that there is a spirit eye in the bright realm? Spirit eye. It was unknown what the others' expressions were, but Xiaohua revealed a strange expression. What is a spirit eye? Hearing Zhenqing's words, Dao Jing seemed to be relieved and shook his head. Senior Zhen also didn't guess it. At this moment, a person from the Huanhua sect took half a step forward and bowed. I'm Yin Guicheng from the Huanhua sect. I've been racking my brains just now, but I still can't figure it out. Senior, please enlighten me. Why is the spiritual aura in the bright realm so abundant? Yin Guicheng walked out at the right time. Not only did he remove the awkwardness between the three sects, but his mischievous words also made everyone chuckle. You little brat, your uncle Master Dao Jing just wants to test your experience. You don't even think about it before you speak. You are so naughty. Xiong Fei glared at Yin Guicheng and scolded. Yin Guicheng smiled embarrassedly and retreated back to Fairy Hongxia's side. He didn't seem to be ashamed of being scolded by a senior. Qing Jing, who was next to Xiong Fei, blushed a little, as if Xiong Fei was talking about him. I'll let the three seniors and fellow cultivators know Dao Jing didn't dare to keep them in suspense anymore. He cupped his hands and said, Indeed, what you said is about the same. It's just that you've forgotten that there's a saying under your feet. It's called I'm destined to be in this mountain. Oh, hearing this, Zhenqing slapped her forehead and said in realization, I also had the same thought just now. Could it be that the bright realm itself is a magic treasure? Xiongfei and Wei Chongxi also understood and said in surprise. The three seniors are really knowledgeable. Dao Jing quickly praised. This bright realm is a magic treasure left behind by the founder of the Taiqing sect. Because it can gather the spiritual aura of heaven and earth, it was placed here as a place for the disciples of the Taiqing sect to cultivate. This is actually a magic treasure? Not only Xiaohua, but all the disciples who practiced qi were also surprised. They all lowered their heads and released their divine senses. However, just like before, the ground was like an ordinary ground. Their divine senses passed through it, and they couldn't find anything wrong with it. Only Zhenqing and the other two golden core cultivators carefully observed it and didn't frown. Such a big magic treasure? What is it used for? Could it be used to smash people? Xiaohua stomped his feet and thought to himself. Then, how much strength does it have? Oh, it shouldn't be strength, it should be magic power. Oh my, what cultivation level does the senior have to have so much magic power? What a powerful divine will. Seniors, the plaza where the Feather Immortal Assembly is held is at the center of the Bright Realm. Please follow me. Dao Jing and the others looked at it for a moment, then cupped their hands and flew up with everyone. The Bright Realm was really big. After flying for the time it took to brew a cup of tea, a flat ground that was several hundred feet wide appeared in front of them. This flat ground seemed to be the peak of a small mountain. It was abnormally flat. There was a huge protrusion on the east side of the flat ground, which was blocked by a restriction. They couldn't see what was inside, but other places were normal. There were countless pavilions around the flat ground. At this moment, some disciples were sitting leisurely inside, meditating or talking. Seniors, this is where the disciples of the Taiqing sect usually cultivate. The Feather Immortal Assembly in 2 days will be held here. The resting places for the disciples of each sect have already been arranged. Dao Jing landed on the flat ground and pointed. Chapter 1602. What's this? Looking at the ordinary flat ground, Xiongfei's gaze naturally fell on the east side that was covered by the forbidden spell, and casually asked, This? Forgive me for keeping you guessing. Dao Jing also said casually. However, as soon as he said that, everyone had a faint smile on their faces. Dao Jing immediately felt that it was inappropriate. He blushed slightly and smiled apologetically. This thing is related to the Feather Immortal Gathering. I can't let you see it for now. You'll know everything when the Feather Immortal Gathering starts. Could it be an ambush? Xiaohua thought to himself. Xiongfei's expression also turned serious. He said vigilantly, Your Taiqing sect. Could it be that you have other ideas? Dao Jing smiled bitterly and cupped his hands. Senior Xiong, please be careful with your words. All the famous sects in the Three Kingdoms are participating in the Feather Immortal Gathering. How could my Taiqing sect dare to do anything? I don't think you dare. Xiongfei waved his hand. However, his gaze did not leave the restrictive spell. He had been using his divine thought to scan the restrictive spell. Unfortunately, the restrictive spell was very strong. No matter how Xiongfei looked, he could not see what was inside. Of course, Xiaohua and the others were also curious. Are the same sects participating in the Feather Immortal Gathering? Wei Chongxi looked away from the restrictive spell and looked at the disciples in different clothes in the pavilion. He said softly, Which sects are not here? Dao Jing smiled. Of course, it's still the same sections. Your country's Shanghua sect and Xuanyan sect, Lian country's Utopia sect, Xiantian sect, Kunlun sect, and Nanming sect. My country's Changbai sect, Immortal Ascension sect, and Xianla sect. My country's 3 sects are close. I'm afraid they will only be here tomorrow. As for the other sects, other than Lian country's Kunlun sect, Nanming sect, and your country's Shanghua sect, all the other sects came yesterday. Then Dao Jing hesitated for a moment and said softly, Also, I seem to have heard. There's another sect participating. However, I don't know which sect it is. There are other sects? Zhenqing, Wei Chongxi, and Xiongfei looked at each other in surprise. It's not that I'm keeping you in suspense. I really don't know. Perhaps we'll be able to see the results in the next 2 days. Dao Jing muttered. Haha, I've said so much. Actually, there are a total of 13 sections. Only the Xuanyan sect, the Utmost Happiness sect, and the Xiantian sect are present, including the Imperial Thunder sect, the Qiqiao sect, and the Huanhua sect. We don't even have half of them. Xiaohua glanced at Hongxiao Fairy, who had a cold expression on her face. Xiaohua pondered in his heart. Utopia faction? I wonder which senior from the Utopia faction is here. It's a pity that Li Zongbao has only built his foundation a few years ago. No matter how much of a genius he is, it's impossible for him to enter the late stage of the foundation establishment realm. I'm afraid he won't be able to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly. Do they all live here too? Zhenqing raised her eyebrows and asked. May I know who their masterminds are? I would like to pay them a visit. All right, Senior Zhen, please know. The Xuanyan sect's Senior Jiang Changhong, the Xiantian sect's Senior Jing Haojing, and the Utmost Happiness faction's Senior Ku Huichou. Dao Jing thought for a while and said, however, Senior Ku from the Utmost Happiness faction went to visit a good friend at the Human Spiritual Peak yesterday, and hasn't returned yet. Only their deputy Li Zongbao is here. If Senior Zhen wants to pay a visit to Senior Ku, I'll send a messaging charm to you. Zhenqing smiled and waved her hand. There's no need. Although we know each other, there's no need to send a messaging charm. We'll go and have a look together later. Great. Hearing Dao Jing's words, Xiaohua was overjoyed. He didn't know how to pass on the message that Wuxia had entrusted to him to Li Zongbao. Now that they were all here to participate in the Feather Immortal Conference, wasn't this the best opportunity? I'll tell Li Zongbao about this matter, and I'll have a perfect explanation for Wuxia. Sigh, beautiful women have short lives. Isn't this the case? Xiaohua looked at Fairy Hongxia in the distance, and couldn't help but think of Wuxia's lifelike face lying in the green stone coffin. Seniors and fellow cultivators, according to the rules of the Feather Immortal Conference, the resting places of each faction are not in the same place. Moreover, each faction is separated by a spell array. Only people with their own magic tokens can enter and leave freely. The spell array of each faction doesn't prevent messaging charms. If you want to go to another faction, you can use your messaging charms. Only when the spell array is open can you enter freely. As Dao Jing spoke, he passed the magic tokens of each faction to the deputies of the 3 factions. In addition, when you're resting, please stay in this pavilion. It's best not to go too far from other places. Dao Jing thought for a while and said, the Bright Realm is the place where the disciples of the Taiqing sect cultivate. There are also places for training. They all rely on the power of magic treasures. Many places are not easy to control. If any of you want to go out and sightsee, you can ask the disciples of the Taiqing sect to lead the way. If you go out without permission and meet with any trouble, the Taiqing sect can't bear the responsibility. Hehe, I know. Every year, the Feather Immortal Conference uses the same old method. Who doesn't know? Xiongfei waved his hand and said, that's good. I'll return to the mountain to report. Seniors, please rest early. Tomorrow, at the e-gathering, the Taiqing sect will send some foundation establishment and Qi refinement disciples over to exchange information with you. After Dao Jing finished speaking, he waved his hand and said to a few Qi refinement level 7 and 8 disciples who had flown over, bring the seniors and senior brothers of each faction to rest. There's e-gathering tomorrow? Xiaohua was delighted when he heard that. He hadn't been to the e-gathering for a long time, and missed the time in Jinghua City. It seems that I have to refine more fireball charms tonight, Xiaohua thought to himself. However, just as this thought arose, Xiaohua scolded himself secretly. How stupid! Exchanging fireball charms with others, and letting others use my own fireball charms to hit myself? The resting place of the Imperial Thunder sect was naturally different from the Huanhua sect. Xiaohua and Fairy Hongxia went their separate ways, and Fairy Hongxia didn't even look at Xiaohua from the beginning to the end. The Imperial Thunder sect was allocated a row of rather large pavilions. There were many rooms and each room had a restriction. One could only enter with the corresponding magic tablet. Xiaohua held the magic tablet that Zhenyu had given him and found his quiet room. Wang Yunxiao's quiet room was right next to Xiaohua's. Seeing Xiaohua open the restriction, Wang Yunxiao smiled and said, that's good. I still have some cultivation insights that I want to share with junior brother Xiao. Can you come to my room later? I'm afraid I don't have time today. I still have other things to do. Let's wait for tomorrow. Xiao Hua shook his head and said. Wang Yunxiao was surprised and asked, Isn't this junior brother Zhao's first time in the Taiqing sect? Hee, of course it's my first time in the Taiqing sect. Xiao Hua smiled and didn't answer Wang Yunxiao's question directly. He stepped into the quiet room and opened the restriction casually. Seeing Xiao Hua walk into the quiet room, Wang Yunxiao narrowed his eyes and stared at the door of the quiet room thoughtfully for a moment. Then he also entered his quiet room. However, Wang Yunxiao didn't close the door of his quiet room, nor did he open the restriction. After the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, Xiao Hua came out of his quiet room. He glanced at Wang Yunxiao's quiet room and stepped out of the row of pavilions where the Imperial Thunder sect was located. Naturally, there were qi refining disciples of the Taiqing sect in front of the pavilions. Xiao Hua asked for the location of the pavilion where the Utopia faction was located, and went without saying. After Xiao Hua's figure disappeared, Wang Yunxiao also came out of the pavilion. He cupped his hands and smiled at the disciple who was on duty. Where did my junior brother go just now? The deputy leader of my sect has something to ask him. That disciple was only at level 6 of the qi refining stage. He didn't dare to ignore Wang Yunxiao's question. He bowed respectfully and said, Just now, my senior brother asked about the location of the Utopia faction. It seems that he is also going to the Utopia faction. Senior brother, you can send a message to him. If it is inconvenient for you, I can help you find him. Forget it. I'm afraid he is going to look for an acquaintance of the Utopia faction. Let's wait for him to come back. Wang Yunxiao waved his hand and turned back. In his heart he muttered to himself, Xiao Hua, this guy. When did he and the Utopia faction? Oh, he can't be a spy of the Utopia faction, right? However, Wang Yunxiao shook his head immediately. If he is really a spy of the Utopia faction, there is no reason for him to be so careless. How could he swagger around to look for people? Maybe. Wang Yunxiao's face showed a trace of a rare hideous smile. Some people just think that they are clever. They think that swaggering around will not be suspected. Well, Xiao Hua is a disbanded cultivator. If he didn't have a great opportunity, how could he reach level 10 of the qi refining stage? This guy must have some secret on him. This secret must be related to the Utopia faction. After thinking about it, Wang Yunxiao could no longer sit still. He quickly walked out of the quiet room and chased after Xiao Hua in the direction that he had just gone. Xiao Hua asked the disciple on duty of the Taiqing sect and found the pavilion assigned by the Utopia faction very easily. Just as Dao Jing said, he couldn't enter the pavilion when he was about 3 feet in front of it. In front of the pavilion, there was also a disciple on duty of the Taiqing sect. When he saw Xiao Hua trying to enter, he walked over and said with his hands folded, Senior brother, you can send a message or message in. If it is inconvenient, I can help you report it. May I know which senior brother of the Utopia faction you are looking for? After thinking for a while, Xiao Hua said with his hands folded, I am Xiao Hua, a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. Please report to Senior Li Zongbao of the Utopia faction that I have something important to tell him. Oh, you are looking for Senior Li. Senior brother Xiao, please wait a moment. The disciple on duty turned around and went in. Not long after, Li Zongbao followed the disciple out of the pavilion with a surprised look on his face. When Li Zongbao saw Xiao Hua, his face was even more incredulous. He looked up and down, left and right, up and down, and said curiously, You are. Then he glanced at the disciple of the Taiqing sect and said vaguely, Are you the Xiao Hua from before? Xiao Hua bowed and said, I am Xiao Hua. Greetings, Senior Li. Chapter 1603. Your cultivation level. Li Zongbao pointed at Xiao Hua and asked in disbelief. Xiao Hua waved his hand and took out the summoning glyph Li Zongbao gave him. He handed it over and said with a smile, This is the summoning glyph Senior gave me that day. Senior, please take a look and see if it's real. Li Zongbao didn't take it and scanned it with his divine sense. He slowly nodded and said, This summoning glyph is real. I also recognize your face, but senior, can you come in for a chat? Xiaohua smiled apologetically and said, Junior has something very important to report to you. Li Zongbao nodded and opened the restriction with a magic tablet to let Xiaohua in. Xiaohua followed Li Zongbao into the quiet room. Xiaohua, what happened to your cultivation level? How did you become a disciple of Imperial Thunder Sect? Li Zongbao had seen Xiaohua when he was in the first layer of qi refining, so he didn't believe that Xiaohua only cultivated from the first layer of qi refining to the 12th layer of qi refining in a few years. Junior was originally in the 10th layer of qi refining, but because of some things my cultivation level was completely lost and I was seriously injured. Fortunately, Senior Xiaohua Ming and Senior Xiao Yu saved Junior, so Junior temporarily took over Xiaohua Ming's body. As for the specific details, forgive Junior for not being able to tell you the truth. Xiaohua explained in a low voice. Li Zongbao didn't know that Xiaohua didn't have any details to report, so he frowned slightly and said, I don't care about those details. Which cultivation sect are you from? Junior was a loose cultivator before, but now I've passed the disciple selection of Imperial Thunder Sect and officially entered the sect, Xiaohua said. A loose cultivator in the 10th layer of qi refining? Li Zongbao's eyes narrowed. His sharp gaze was like two swords piercing Xiaohua's body, as if he wanted to see everything about Xiaohua. This is bad. Xiaohua knew it was bad. He was a loose cultivator in the 10th layer of qi refining. How could he be so young? Moreover, he was always with Wuxia. How could Li Zongbao not be suspicious? However, Xiaohua was also helpless. A loose cultivator in the 10th layer of qi refining recovering his cultivation in a few years was more reliable than a loose cultivator in the first layer of qi refining cultivating to the 12th layer of qi refining in a few years, right? Xiaohua had to continue making this lie. Fortunately, a loose cultivator in the 10th layer of qi refining in the 10th layer of qi refining in the 10th layer of qi refining was around 20, and there weren't many people who knew Zhao's details as background. Seeing that Xiaohua's eyes didn't even blink as he responded to him, Li Zongbao continued to ask, What about Wuxia? Where is she now? Luyang's? Xiaohua sighed with a gloomy expression. With a wave of his hand he took out the silk pouch Wuxia gave him and handed it over. He said sorrowfully, Fellow Taoist Kai asked Junior to give this to you. Hearing this, Li Zongbao's heart skipped a beat. He already had a premonition. With a wave of his hand, the silk bag flew out from Xiaohua's hand, but he didn't even look at it. He suddenly released his pressure, firmly suppressing Xiaohua. He coldly said, Tell me, what happened to Wuxia? His teeth, clack. Seniors. His tus, Was he senior? Ah? How is that possible? When Li Zongbao heard this grievous news, his face turned ferocious. His eyes were bloodshot. The mings increased. Senior. Withdraw your mings. Junior will tell the truth. Xiaohua didn't get angry when he saw Li Zongbao's grief. Instead, he sympathized with Li Zongbao. Li Zongbao stared at Xiaohua like a wild beast, causing goosebumps to appear on Xiaohua's back. After a long while, Li Zongbao withdrew more than half of his pressure, but still left some on Xiaohua's body to prevent Xiaohua from doing anything else. Li Zongbao sat cross-legged on the ground and said coldly, Tell me. Xiaohua also slowly sat down and slowly said, Yes, Junior came today to clearly explain the matter to Senior, so that I can complete Fellow Kai's request. After that, Xiaohua recounted what had happened in the Flaming Forest Swamp, just like what he had told the Kai family of Luyang. On the other side, Li Zongbao's expression changed drastically, especially when he heard Wuxia call out his name before she died. When she put the black hair into the silk pouch for him, he unconsciously opened the silk pouch. When he saw the black hair, he really thought of her and couldn't help but shed tears. The pressure that was suppressing Xiaohua had long been withdrawn completely. After Xiaohua finished speaking, the entire quiet room was deathly still. Neither of them wanted to say a single word. Li Zongbao's eyes were firmly fixed on the silk bag in his hand, as if he could see Wuxia, unwilling to leave even half an inch. After an unknown amount of time, Li Zongbao said in a low voice. Xiaohua, is what you said true? Xiaohua froze and hurriedly said, how can Junior dare to deceive Senior? Kai Daoyou's corpse was in the manor of the Kai family in Luoyang. Oh, Kai Wuxia's younger sister, Fairy Hongxia, has already joined the Huanhua sect. She is currently in the Bright Realm. If Senior doesn't believe me, you can ask her face to face. It's just that this disciple didn't tell them about Senior's matter. And I believe you, Li Zongbao said slowly, word by word. How can I not believe a person who can send the last good fate tablet of the Huanhua sect back to the Kai family according to Wuxia's wishes? Xiaohua didn't feel any joy in his heart. He cupped his hands and said, many thanks for Senior's trust. All right, you can go now. Li Zongbao waved his hand, as if he had aged a few years. I and Wuxia owe you a huge favor. You and Kai Wuxia? Xiaohua's heart ached as he thought to himself in amazement. However, he didn't dare to stay for long. He stood up and said, Junior will return now. Junior will definitely not reveal the matter of Junior coming here. And Senior's matter. Go, Li Zongbao sighed and waved his hand. After Xiaohua left, Li Zongbao's trembling hand held the silk bag. His eyelids trembled slightly, and scalding hot tears unconsciously flowed down. After an unknown period of time, Li Zongbao's figure didn't change. However, his hair gradually turned white, then white, and finally snow-white. Li Zongbao's eyes changed from pain to determination, and finally to indifference. When Li Zongbao's eyes became indifferent, his figure changed slightly. His hands formed a strange spell, and he placed them in front of his chest. His true core strength started to flow around his body. Along with the flow of his true core strength, Li Zongbao's body produced a huge suction force. It was like a black hole, sucking in the spiritual qi of heaven and earth both inside and outside the quiet room. The hurricane created by the flow of the spiritual qi of heaven and earth caused the restrictive spell in the quiet room to flicker. The movement in Li Zongbao's quiet room naturally attracted the attention of the Utmost Happiness faction's disciples. They didn't dare to neglect it and immediately notified the Taiqing sect's disciples who were on duty. They asked them to inform Xie Hui and the disciples on duty to release the restrictive spell in the pavilion, so that more spiritual qi of heaven and earth could enter. The sky was getting brighter. Outside Li Zongbao's quiet room, more than 10 disciples were guarding it. Xie Hui also rushed back and looked at the restrictive spell in the quiet room nervously. He didn't dare to release his soul strength rashly. Inside the quiet room, Li Zongbao's hair was all white, and his face showed the usual indifference. Suddenly, Li Zongbao's face flushed red. Then Li Zongbao opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of bright red blood. It landed on the silk bag that Li Zongbao had placed on the ground. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, Li Zongbao's eyes moved slightly. He released the strange spell in his hands, and the spiritual qi of heaven and earth that was violently sucked into his body stopped abruptly. Li Zongbao stood up and slowly opened his eyes. His pitch-black eyes gradually showed a trace of indifference. He raised his head and looked at the silk bag that was stained with blood. He raised his hand, and a wisp of flame appeared and fell on the silk bag. With a light bang, the silk bag was ignited and turned into ashes in a short while. Li Zongbao's eyes reflected the flame that was ignited by the silk bag. As the flame was extinguished, his eyes lost some of their emotions and became even more indifferent. Looking at the restrictive spells around the quiet room, Li Zongbao waved his hand. With a flash of light, the restrictive spells were closed. Outside the quiet room, Xie Hui was about to release his divine thought when the door opened. When the apprentices of the Utopia faction saw Li Zongbao's appearance, they couldn't help but be surprised. Even Xie Hui took a step forward and said in a low voice, Zongbao, what's going on? Li Zongbao said calmly, Uncle, don't worry. Yesterday an old friend of mine came to visit me. After he left, I felt that my understanding of the parting mirror had deepened. So, I took the opportunity to perform secluded meditation for a while. Last night's movement and my changes are all signs of my cultivation progress. Uncle, you've thoroughly understood the parting mirror? Xie Hui was delighted to hear that. Li Zongbao still said calmly, I don't dare to say that I've comprehended it. I just felt more about it than before. Ha ha, congratulations. It seems that I was right to ask you to come to the Feather Celestial Conference, Xiaohui said with a smile. Although your cultivation hasn't reached the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage, with the understanding of the parting mirror, you can easily reach the foundation establishment stage. Congratulations, Senior Li. The apprentices of the Utopia faction were also happy to hear that. They all bowed to him. Forget it. Congratulations to you too. Li Zongbao waved his hand. There was no joy on his face. He looked at the sky outside and said, "Today is the day of the exchange meeting of the Feather Celestial Conference. You can go and find what you need. I want to meditate, cultivate, and consolidate my cultivation stage." "Okay, you can go and wait. I will stay here to protect him," Xiaohui said with a smile and waved his hand. "Yes, we will do as you say." The apprentices bowed and left the pavilion of the Utopia faction in 2s and 3s. At this time, the sun was shining brightly outside the pavilion. Many apprentices were sitting on the ground with their legs crossed. In front of them were some things. The exchange meeting of the Feather Celestial Conference had begun. Chapter 1604. Xiaohua left Li Zongbao's quiet room and saw a flash of light at the door. The restriction was reactivated, and his heart ached for no reason. If the heavens have feelings, the heavens will grow old. If the moon doesn't hate, the moon will be round. What can I do? Xiaohua sighed and left. The Taiching sect disciple on duty didn't stop him and only smiled and sent him off. Xiaohua's mind was in a mess. He didn't notice that in a dark place not far away, Wang Yunxiao was looking at his back with bright eyes, thinking about something. Xiaohua returned to the Imperial Thunder Sect's pavilion and opened the restriction of the quiet room. He was stunned. Inside the room, a crimson communication talisman was floating in the air. Could it be Fairy Hongxia? Xiaohua thought, and a trace of ecstasy appeared in his heart. Unfortunately, when he crushed the communication talisman, Sun Shu's voice came from inside. "Junior brother Xiao, if you have time, can you come to I's quiet room for a chat?" "Sun Shu, what's the matter?" Xiaohua thought for a moment, then turned and walked out of the quiet room. Sun Shu's quiet room was not far from Xiaohua's, and there was no restriction outside the quiet room. Hearing footsteps stop in front of his door, Sun Shu swept with his divine sense and got up to open the door. "Junior brother Xiao, please come in." Xiaohua nodded slightly and walked into the room. Seeing Sun Shu activate the quiet room's restriction, he frowned. Sun Shu naturally noticed Xiaohua's expression and said in a low voice, "I have some things to discuss with fellow Daoist, so I had to do this." "Good." Xiaohua looked around, then sat cross-legged on the ground and said in a deep voice, "Then I am all ears." If it was a normal day, Xiaohua would definitely have a smile on his face and chat with the delicate and pretty senior sister Sun Shu. Unfortunately, his mood was driven away by Fairy Hongxia's indifference. Moreover, he just saw the sadness of Li Zongbao and Kai Wuxia. How could he still have the mood to chat with Sun Shu? His tone became much fainter. Sun Shu was sensitive and had long noticed it. He said with an apologetic expression, "I know that junior brother Xiao painstakingly cultivates and doesn't waste any time. I'm really sorry for inviting junior brother Xiao over." It's fine, it's fine." Xiaohua reluctantly squeezed out a trace of a smile and said, "I's mood is a bit bad. I hope that senior sister Sun will forgive me. People have their joys and sorrows, and the moon waxes and wanes. How can there be anything perfect in this world? It's normal for junior brother Xiao to have troubles." Sun Shu sighed and said, "It's just that we're all cultivators. We shouldn't let our emotions affect our decisions. Junior brother Xiao, you're a loose cultivator, so I'm sure you have a deeper understanding of this." Perhaps. Xiaohua didn't understand why Sun Shu was so sentimental, and casually waved his hand. "Junior brother Xiao, I haven't thanked you for saving my life. Today, I finally know how to thank you. Please forgive me." Finished speaking, Sun Shu stood in front of Xiaohua and bowed gracefully. Xiaohua immediately jumped up from the ground, stretched out his hand to support Sun Shu's arm, and called out, "What are you doing? Senior sister Sun, you've killed this little brother." How could Sun Shu be willing to comply? She still had to bow down, but unfortunately, How could her strength compare to Xiaohua's? Xiaohua's arm seemed to be cast from copper and iron, and it didn't budge in the slightest. Sun Shu couldn't help but muster her magic power, wanting to move Xiaohua's arm away. Who would have thought that even if she mustered 50% of her magic power, Xiaohua's arm still wouldn't budge? This Sun Shu was a bit stunned. She knew the difference between the peak of Qi refining stage and the early stage of Qi refining stage. Sun Shu's beautiful eyes turned, and she bitterly smiled and said, "Since junior brother Xiao doesn't want I to thank you, then I can only take it back." "Don't, senior sister Sun. You also know that I's movement technique is very fast. Under the attack of the flying leopard, I might not necessarily be in trouble. That's why I dared to help. I don't deserve such a heavy reward. I reckon that the others also have the same idea. If they had the ability, they would have definitely helped," Xiaohua calmly said as he withdrew his hand. "AI." Sun Shu sighed and casually sat down. She bitterly smiled and said, "Having the ability is one thing, but whether or not they can help is another. From I's point of view they—" Sun Shu waved her hand as if she was shooing away a fly. "Don't say any more, don't say any more. Saying these things will only hurt I." Xiaohua slightly nodded and didn't say anything. After a while Sun Shu opened her mouth again and said, "Actually, I invited junior brother Xiao over to discuss something with him." "Please speak, senior sister. However, before I say it, I want to confirm something with junior brother Xiao." "What is it?" Xiaohua didn't understand. "Junior brother Xiao has already learned the lightning escape technique?" Sun Shu probed. What does it have to do with it?" Xiaohua asked back. Sun Shu saw that Xiaohua didn't deny it and sighed in relief. She smiled and said, "Actually, when junior brother Xiao saved I that day, I already faintly felt that this was the case. However, to be on the safe side, I still have to ask." Seeing that Sun Shu had explained, Xiaohua couldn't deny it anymore and slightly nodded. "That's good." A trace of a smile flashed on Sun Shu's face, and she asked, "I wonder if fellow Taoist Xiao wants to cultivate the lightning escape technique to the 4th level." What do you mean?" Xiaohua was stunned and said curiously, "I naturally want to cultivate the lightning escape technique. Not just the 4th level, even if it's the 9th level, I also want to cultivate it." Her. Hearing Xiaohua's answer, Sun Shu covered her mouth and said with a smile, "Junior brother Xiao, was this lightning escape technique taught by your master?" "Why? Does senior sister feel that it isn't?" "Of course not," Sun Shu explained. "If your master had no choice but to teach it, I believe that junior brother Xiao wouldn't answer like this right now." "Why is that? Could it be that this lightning escape technique still has something fishy?" Xiaohua was even more surprised. Sun Shu also did not ask where Xiaohua learned this lightning escape technique from. She only said, "I wonder how many levels of the lightning escape technique junior brother Xiao has seen before?" "Senior sister Sun, if you have something to say, just say it directly. Always asking like this makes people very uncomfortable." Xiaohua turned his head and said, "All right, then I will get straight to the point," Sun Shu said with a smile. "I believe that junior brother Xiao has only seen the 1st level of the lightning escape technique. Actually, although my Imperial Thunder Sect's lightning escape technique is called an escape technique, it is actually a cultivation technique, which is the legendary lightning cultivator." "Lightning cultivator?" Xiaohua slightly frowned. He had never heard of this lightning cultivator. Sun Shu also did not explain and continued to say, "It's just that because the cultivation technique is incomplete, this cultivation technique cannot be cultivated, and could only be modified into an escape technique. Compared to the previous lightning cultivator technique, the lightning escape technique can only be considered an insignificant Dao. Moreover, even so, this lightning escape technique is extremely different from the 5 elements escape technique. I believe that junior brother Xiao also knows that the lightning escape technique is divided into 9 levels, but you definitely don't know that this lightning escape technique is divided into 3 grades. 3 grades? Xiaohua was stunned. He seemed to have never seen this in the lightning escape technique before. "I hope senior sister can enlighten me." Hehe. This 3rd grade lightning escape technique is only known by the direct disciples of my Imperial Thunder Sect. And it is only limited by word of mouth. Even your master. Maybe he only knows half of it. Sun Shu said with a smile. And Shui in the future, she will definitely not know. Therefore, I ask junior brother Xiao to swear that this matter absolutely cannot be told to anyone else. Xiaohua understood. This third-grade lightning escape technique was already something that Sun Shu wanted to say in the future. It was probably her repayment for saving her life. Thinking for a moment, Xiaohua nodded in agreement and made a heart oath. Thus, Sun Shu continued. The 3 grades of the lightning evasion are divided into high, middle, and low grades, respectively corresponding to the 9 levels of the lightning evasion. Among them, hibernating lightning, shocking lightning, and bright lightning are low-grade lightning evasion. Imperial lightning travel, imperial lightning change, and imperial lightning shock are middle-grade lightning evasion. Lightning travel 3 realms, lightning surpass 6 paths, and thunderclap 9th heaven are high-grade lightning evasion. And what's so strange about this? Xiaohua secretly said. Isn't it just the early, middle, and late stages? Actually, the low-grade lightning escape technique also has a name called lightning tranquility. Middle-grade lightning escape technique is called lightning movement, and high-grade lightning escape technique is called lightning ascension. Sun Shu continued to say, the reason why there are these names is because there is an insurmountable gap between the third-grade lightning escape technique. There must be some opportunity to have the opportunity to enter the later stages. This opportunity is not just limited to cultivation. Looking at Xiaohua's unmoved expression, Sun Shu said again, in my Imperial Thunder sect, there are countless disciples who cultivate the lightning escape technique. However, the vast majority of people stop at lightning tranquility. Very few disciples can break through to lightning movement. Even the current sect master is only at the 2nd level of lightning movement. What? Sect master? Just cultivated to Imperial Thunder change? Hearing this news, Xiaohua couldn't help but be shocked. That's right, it's exactly so. Moreover, not only that, my Imperial Thunder sect's reclusive elders and martial ancestors, it is said that at most, they have only reached shocking thunder change. This is it that difficult? Xiaohua was flabbergasted. If it wasn't so difficult, why can everyone cultivate my Imperial Thunder sect's lightning escape technique? Sun Shu said with a smile. As long as you have a lightning attribute physique, you can comprehend my Lightning Palace's lightning escape technique when you reach foundation establishment. No one will stop you, because the elders in the sect know that it is basically impossible for them to break through to lightning tranquility. I wonder what realm martial ancestor Sun Ming is at? Xiaohua suddenly asked. My master has already reached lightning tranquility's 3rd level, Sun Shu said with a smile. Bright lightning escape? Precisely. Xiaohua's expression was thought-provoking. He said with a smile, since martial ancestor Sun Ming with his Aurus core stage cultivation can't break through to lightning movement, does senior sister Sun think that I can break through with my current cultivation? Sun Shu knew that Xiaohua would ask this question, and said with confidence, if junior brother Xiao does as I say, perhaps there is a 30% chance. If you don't do it, I'm afraid there is only a 10% chance. Sun Shu then added. This humble Taoist saw that junior brother Xiao was able to comprehend the hibernating thunder escape technique at the late stage of qi refinement, and has talent in the thunder escape technique. This humble Taoist wanted to work with junior brother Xiao because of that. Otherwise, even if junior brother Xiao saved this humble Taoist's life, this humble Taoist would only repay him in other ways. Chapter 1605. Cooperation? When Xiaohua heard this, he couldn't help but have a headache. He had cooperated with Wuxia before. Although he had also gained something. The price was also obvious. Senior Sun. Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, Senior Sun must know that I was originally a loose cultivator. I ran wild outside and didn't have time to cultivate. Now that I was able to enter the Imperial Thunder sect with great difficulty, I have techniques, pills, and the guidance of Master and Senior Sun. I really cherish the opportunity to cultivate now. Therefore, I'm not very interested in traveling and so on. I just want to cultivate quietly. Oh, I understand. Sun Shu didn't expect that the secret of the lightning escape technique couldn't move Xiaohua. Clearly, she had underestimated Xiaohua's hardships as a loose cultivator. However, since Junior Sun doesn't want to travel, why? Did you participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly? Sun Shu rolled her eyes and said with a smile. Is the Feather Immortal Assembly the same as traveling? Xiaohua asked back. I see. Sun Shu understood. She pursed her lips and said with a smile. It seems that Junior Sun doesn't know the origin of the Feather Immortal Assembly. Moreover, no wonder. When you saw I during the selection, you immediately admitted defeat. Junior Sun probably didn't plan to come to the Taiching sect at all, right? Indeed. Xiaohua said helplessly. I came here by coincidence. However, Sun Shu's face changed and she said solemnly, since Junior Sun didn't plan to come, then don't come. Since you're here, then you must be alert and protect your life. What? Protect my life? Xiaohua was stunned and stuttered. I thought that it would be over after one round. The Myriad Thunder Valley hasn't had a disciple participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly for many years. Our Imperial Thunder sect always exaggerates the function of the Feather Immortal Assembly and never mentions the casualties. Yes, even if there are casualties, it's to win glory for our Imperial Thunder sect. After a long time, who would remember that the Feather Immortal Assembly was originally a method for cultivation countries to compete for resources? Sun Shu said coldly. Even now, the Feather Immortal Assembly is a kind of experience for the late Qi refinement disciples of various sects to enter the foundation establishment stage. Since it's an experience, there should be a price. If there was no danger, if there was no risk of death, how could a late-stage or a refining disciple break through? What was the difference between this and the foundation establishment training once every 5 years? Of course, the Feather Immortal Gathering is different from the foundation establishment training that occurs once every 5 years. In the Feather Immortal Gathering, if your cultivation is sufficient and you're able to obtain a good ranking, then you'll be able to obtain the rewards of the Feather Immortal Gathering. The rewards may be a high-grade foundation establishment cultivation technique, a pill that can increase your chances of reaching foundation establishment, a powerful magic artifact, or even a magic treasure. Stay. Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand and said, Senior Sister Sun, what's the foundation establishment experiential learning that happens once every 5 years? This junior brother Xiao doesn't know? Sun Shu was surprised and laughed. Even if Master and Senior Martial Brother didn't mention it, the disciples of Zhenlei Palace would talk about it. Every time we train, there will be earth-shattering stories, and they are all topics that the disciples talk about in their free time. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. Ever since he entered the Imperial Thunder sect, he had always been in the Eastern Rich Herb Garden, cultivating behind closed doors. He didn't pay attention to the outside world, so how could he know about this? Master Wuxia was a little impatient and wanted him to reach foundation establishment. He had more than enough motivation but didn't exert himself. As for Senior Martial Brother Xiangyang, he was the kind of person who would answer every question you asked about a cultivation technique, and answer every question you asked about general knowledge. With such a master and Senior Martial Brother, how could Xiaohua know about this? Perhaps Wuxia was also bewitched by the masters of the Imperial Thunder sect. He had long forgotten that the Feather Immortal Gathering was a 12th layer or a refining training to break through the barrier and step into foundation establishment. He only knew that it was a matter of gaining face for Zhenlei Palace and Myriad Thunder Valley, right? I'm a loose cultivator. It's not easy for me to find a stable place to cultivate, and I've always been in the Eastern Ridge. I even rarely go to Zhenlei Palace. Xiaohua muttered. Sun Shu was close to Shui, so she knew what Xiaohua said was right. She nodded and said, cultivating peacefully can certainly improve your cultivation, but if you reach a bottleneck and can't improve, you can only go out to gain experience. When you reach the late stage of the 12th layer or a refining, the disciples of the Thunder Palace have to go out to gain experience once every 5 years. They hope to find a chance to break through the bottleneck and step into foundation establishment. So it's like that. Xiaohua nodded slightly. He had heard Xiangyang talk about foundation establishment before, So he thought that foundation establishment was about the same as his cultivation of aura refining. He only needed to cultivate quietly. Now that he thought about it again, during the Feather Immortal Gathering's qualification selection, he had only gone through several hundred battles. Not only was he proficient in magic arts, but his magic power had also increased. It seemed that this kind of experience was also necessary. Sun Shu looked at Xiao Hua's expression and said, "Since fellow Xiao will go out to gain experience in the future, why don't you consider cooperating with I?" This Xiao Hua was a little tongue-tied. He touched his chin and thought for a while, then said with a smile, "Senior Martial Sister Sun, don't you think that you can reach foundation establishment after passing the Feather Immortal Gathering this time?" Sun Shu heard this and sighed. She smiled bitterly and said, "I think about it even in my dreams. But is it that easy to reach foundation establishment? Although I've heard that some disciples were able to reach foundation establishment when participating in the Feather Immortal Gathering. Those are all legends. I don't dare to have extravagant hopes. Moreover, it's not just I. Apart from the disciples of the Heaven and Earth Thunder Palaces who may have some hope, the other 10 disciples are definitely impossible." Senior Martial Sister's words are a little too full. People like Wang Yunxiao, Min Ge, and Yuan Bo all entered the Imperial Thunder Sect at the same time as I. They improved very quickly and stepped into the late stage of the 12th layer of aura refining in just a few years. If you say that they can't reach foundation establishment, I will be the first to not believe it. Junior Martial Brother Zhao's words are wrong. Sun Shu shook her head and said, "Foundation establishment isn't about who cultivates faster, but who cultivates to perfection. Moreover, apart from these, the most important thing is opportunity." Putting aside opportunity, Xue Xue also told I about these people that fellow Taoist Xiao mentioned. According to I's observations, it's precisely because these people cultivated too quickly after entering the Imperial Thunder Sect that they became obstacles to their own foundation establishment. Not to mention that it's impossible to reach foundation establishment this time. Even after 5 years, they may not be able to reach foundation establishment. Looking at Sun Shu's extremely certain tone, Xiao Hua was stunned. "Senior Martial Sister, aren't you too arbitrary?" Sun Shu chuckled and said, "This is what Master said. I's just saying." Grandmaster Sun Ming seems to tell Senior Martial Sister everything? Xiao Hua said thoughtfully. This Sun Shu's eyes turned a few times and she said with a smile, "Master and I are somewhat related by blood." Xiao Hua suddenly understood. If there wasn't this relationship, how could Sun Shu know so much? "How about it? Junior Martial Brother Xiao, I said so much. What do you think?" Sun Shu said with a smile. Xiao Hua stroked his chin and slowly nodded. "I know that this matter is related to Senior Martial Sister's cultivation plan, so I won't ask too much. When Senior Martial Sister feels that the time is right, if I happen to be going through Foundation Establishment experiential training, then how about I go with Senior Martial Sister?" "Great." Sun Shu clapped her hands and said, "In that case, let's clap our hands and make an oath. When the time is right, I'll inform you." Xiao Hua nodded. Thereupon, the two clapped their hands and made an oath. Soon after, Xiao Hua got up. Just as he was about to leave, he inadvertently asked, "Senior Martial Sister, why is there still a trade fair tomorrow?" It's nothing more than an exchange of things. Who would exchange things that are truly useful here? I'm afraid that what we'll see tomorrow will be some ordinary or strange things that other people can't understand." Sun Shu laughed. Though she said it carelessly, the listener did. Xiao Hua's heart stirred. There were still a dozen or so gold leaves that he hadn't found in the exquisite derivation pagoda. Maybe there would be some pleasant surprise tomorrow. Actually, after Sun Shu finished speaking, she looked like she wanted to say something but hesitated. "Forget it, let's not talk about it. I've already said too much to Junior Martial Brother Xiao today. If I had said it earlier, I would have been as annoying as my master." Then Senior Martial Sister will talk about it later." Xiao Hua cupped his hands and left the quiet room. The night was silent. The next morning, the sun was shining brightly. The disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect and the other sects had already packed up their things and came to the plaza. Today's plaza was different from yesterday. The flat ground was divided into many squares. Each square was about 4 feet in radius, just enough for a cultivator to sit inside. When Xiaohua stepped into the plaza, there were already many Taiching sect disciples sitting cross-legged. In front of them were some medicinal pills, jade slips, and other things. In addition to the squares occupied by the Taiching sect disciples, there were many empty squares on the flat ground. Some of the disciples of the other sects found a square and sat down. They put their things in front of them and waited for others to ask about the price. As the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect and the other sects entered, the plaza gradually became lively. Xiaohua wasn't in a hurry. He just squinted his eyes and looked around. After looking for a moment, Xiaohua gradually understood that it was just as Sun Shu said. There weren't any medicinal pills that were useful to Qi refinement stage disciples. Even the jade slips only recorded superficial Qi refinement stage cultivation methods. On the contrary, there were many strange little things. Some were strange in shape, and some had obscure spiritual power fluctuations. In short, they were mostly things that no one could afford to pick up. Huh? What is this? Xiaohua was walking when he saw something similar to a necklace in a square not far away. This thing was iron gray in color. It was mottled with rust. It was really inconspicuous. Even the slight spiritual power fluctuations were intermittent. Xiaohua didn't know the origin of this thing. It was just that when he looked at it, his first impression was that it had some origin. Xiaohua took a few steps forward, wanting to take the necklace. However, when he was a few steps away from the necklace, an early-stage Foundation Establishment Taiching sect disciple stepped in front of Xiaohua and picked up the necklace. He calmly transmitted his voice. "Fellow Taoist, do you want to exchange this for spirit stones or something else?" That disciple was from the Seven Skills sect. When he saw someone pick up the necklace, his face lit up with joy. He cupped his hands and sent a voice transmission to the early-stage Foundation Establishment Taiching sect disciple about what he wanted to exchange for. Chapter 1606. After that, the disciple of the Taiching sect also started to bargain. After a while, the disciple of the Taiching sect took out a storage bag and handed it to the disciple of the Qiqiao sect. The disciple of the Qiqiao sect opened it and looked at it. Then he was delighted. He put away the storage bag and cupped his hands. "Thank you for your help, senior. Please keep it well." "Okay." The disciple of the Taiching sect nodded slightly and put the necklace into the storage bag. "Sound transmission? That's a good idea." Xiaohua, who was standing not far away, regretted that he was late. At the same time, he was lost in thought because he couldn't hear their conversation. Sound transmission was the basic spell of the Imperial Thunder sect. Under Xiangyang's guidance, Xiaohua had mastered it a long time ago. However, he never thought that he would use it in such an occasion. When Xiaohua looked at the disciples who were exchanging items, he found that they were all using sound transmission. Moreover, they put everything in their storage bags and didn't take it out. Wonderful. Xiaohua applauded in his heart. At the same time, he dispelled the regret of not getting the magic weapon in advance. Then Xiaohua walked forward again. However, at this moment he heard some noises behind him. When he looked back, he saw 3 disciples of the Taiching sect outside the square. They led 3 groups of disciples in different outfits and flew toward him. The disciples of the Taiching sect whispered, "Humph, the Changbai sect, the Immortal Ascension School, and the Immortal Music sect are finally here. I thought that they would only come tomorrow when the Feather Immortal Assembly officially begins." "Yes, I heard from my master that in the past, the cultivators of our country would arrive one day before the Feather Immortal Assembly. On one hand, they show respect to the host sect. On the other hand, they welcome the other sects from afar like the host sect." Xiaohua was amused. Yesterday, Sun Shu had said that the Feather Immortal Assembly was a trial for the disciples at the peak of the 12th level of the Qi refining realm. The disciples of each sect would fight for their lives. Who would want to come first? In Xiaohua's opinion, it was good enough that they could come. Ming country's 3 cultivation sects had around 60 people. They were also led to their own pavilions to rest. After Xiaohua walked around the square for the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, These disciples also came out one after another. In the lattice, there were many new things that were taken out. Xiaohua looked at it for a long time, but still didn't gain anything. He saw a flat wine jug. According to the disciple who sold it, it was a spatial magic treasure, but without the method to refine it, it couldn't be used completely. That disciple wanted to use it to exchange for a water-based foundation establishment cultivation method. But through Xiaohua's spiritual sense, he didn't see anything special about this wine jug. He even felt that it was a very simple magic tool, similar to a storage pouch. Although there were quite a few disciples surrounding them, Xiaohua only listened for a moment before walking away. What was that? It seems to be similar to the soul-absorbing bell. He walked up to a Mongolian disciple who had just arrived and saw a broken bell. That Mongolian disciple was a young female cultivator. This cultivator's skin was extremely white, especially her two eyebrows, which were faint like two clouds. Xiaohua looked at the side and saw that there were no other disciples interested in this thing. He slowly walked in front of that female cultivator and cupped his hands. I am Imperial Thunder Sex Xiaohua. Greetings, senior. Sister. When that female cultivator saw Xiaohua greet her and transmit his voice, she almost laughed out loud. Soon after she transmitted her voice. Fellow Taoist Xiao is interesting. We are just bartering. Why do we need to introduce ourselves? Xiaohua's face was slightly red. Just as he was about to explain, that female cultivator transmitted her voice again. I am Immortal Music Sex Zhong Xiaohan. I am very happy to meet fellow Taoist Xiao. Then she pointed her finger and said, Fellow Taoist Xiao, are you interested in eyes things? Exactly. I don't know if fellow Taoist thing is the soul-absorbing bell. This thing is called the soul-absorbing bell, but it is not the soul-absorbing bell that fellow Taoist spoke of. Oh, so it's like that. Xiaohua was somewhat disappointed. He thought for a moment and asked, I don't know if fellow Taoist Zhong has the method to use this soul-absorbing bell? Zhong Xiaohan stared at Xiaohua for a moment, seemingly thinking. Then she asked, I only wanted to use this soul-absorbing bell to exchange for some spirit stones. As for the method to use it, if I gave it to fellow Taoist Xiao, wouldn't fellow Taoist Xiao know the origin of this soul-absorbing bell? Xiaohua slightly nodded. Zhong Xiaohan's words were very reasonable. The method to use it must have the origin of this soul-absorbing bell. Looking at Zhong Xiaohan's meaning, this thing was most likely related to the state of Xi. When he thought of the state of Xi, Xiaohua naturally thought of the Cheng clan. Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, Fellow Taoist Zhong, wouldn't it be fine if you erased the origin of the jade slip? Unfortunately, the cultivation method was not written in the jade slip. Zhong Xiaohan smiled. Xiaohua was helpless. He cupped his hands and said, It seems that I have no fate with this thing. Fellow Taoist Xiao, don't worry. Zhong Xiaohan said again. There is nothing in this world that can't be exchanged. It just depends on whether you are willing to pay the price. Great. Xiaohua clapped and said, What does fellow Taoist Zhong want? What does fellow Taoist Xiao have? Do you think it can be matched with Ai's soul-absorbing bell? Zhong Xiaohan asked back. Xiaohua thought for a moment and said with a smile, Fellow Taoist Zhong just said that you want to exchange for spirit stones. It seems that spirit stones are not possible. Medicinal pills? I don't have any. If fellow Taoist Zhong wants any spirit herbs, I do have some here. You don't have any refining materials? Zhong Xiaohan frowned and asked. Refining materials? Xiaohua shook his head. Zhong Xiaohan said regretfully, I need a few golden silk fantasy stones. It seems that fellow Taoist Xiao doesn't have any? No. I have never heard of it. Xiaohua was also very regretful. He looked at the bell in the grid and said, I have a few old spirit herbs. If fellow Taoist Zhong needs them, we can exchange them. Otherwise, old spirit herbs? Zhong Xiaohan's eyes lit up and said with a smile, How old are they? Seeing that there was hope, Xiaohua asked again, How old does fellow Taoist Zhong need? 1,000-year-old exquisite grass. Does fellow Taoist Xiao have it? Sigh, Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air and said with a bitter smile, Fellow Taoist Zhong really thinks too highly of me. 1,000-year-old, exquisite grass, how could I have it? Besides, fellow Taoist Zhong naturally has Immortal Music Sex Foundation Establishment Pill. Why do you still need exquisite grass? Hee, didn't fellow Taoist Xiao want to know how old I need it? I already said it. Why did you refuse? Zhong Xiaohan said with a smile. The more foundation establishment pills, the better. If I wait until I reach foundation establishment and find out that I don't have enough foundation establishment pills, don't you think I will regret it to death? Fellow Taoist Zhong is right. Xiaohua nodded. I have exquisite grass here, but it's only 600 years old. In fact, it was prepared to exchange for foundation establishment pills. However, I am still far from foundation establishment, so I will exchange it for fellow Taoist Zhong first. Ah, really? It's really 600 years old? Zhong Xiaohan seemed to be surprised and said with pleasant surprise. She was so happy that she actually forgot to transmit her voice. A few disciples passing by also stopped and looked at the two of them in surprise. Sorry. Zhong Xiaohan realized that she forgot herself and said while covering her mouth. I wonder if fellow Taoist Xiao can let I take a look. Sure. Xiaohua took out a storage pouch and handed it over. As expected, Zhong Xiaohan opened it and looked. A satisfied smile appeared on her face. Seeing Zhong Xiaohan's smile, Xiaohua's heart also felt at ease. He said with a smile, Is fellow Taoist Zhong satisfied? Of course. Zhong Xiaohan also took out a storage pouch and handed it over with a smile. Fellow Taoist Xiao, please take a look. When Xiaohua looked, there was indeed a book inside. After taking it out and roughly looking through it, Xiaohua unconsciously became happy. Just as he expected, this soul-collecting bell was indeed an ancestral artifact of a side branch of Shi country's Xiao Nancheng clan. Good, Xiaohua raised his hand and put the broken bell into the storage pouch. He cupped his hands and said with a smile, Many thanks, fellow Taoist Zhong. Farewell. You're welcome. Zhong Xiaohan's eyes narrowed like two crescent moons, making her faint eyebrows even more tasteful. But just as Xiaohua turned around, Zhong Xiaohan suddenly asked, Fellow Taoist Xiao, do you still have exquisite grass? I don't believe that you didn't leave some for yourself. Fellow Taoist Zhong, what do you think? Xiaohua smiled and turned around to leave. After walking for a while, Xiaohua began to mutter. He had so many foundation establishment pills in his storage pouch, but he didn't think about the use of foundation establishment pills for these peak 12th stage Qi refinement disciples. Who wouldn't want more foundation establishment pills? Thinking back to that year, Xiangyang cultivated for 50 years because he didn't have enough foundation establishment pills. And the foundation establishment pills in each sect were presumably limited, so each disciple was given a fixed amount. If he used foundation establishment pills or exquisite grass to exchange for things with these disciples, most likely he would succeed, right? But immediately Xiaohua denied it. This trade fair was exchanged with his real face. It was still possible to exchange for a magic artifact, but if he exchanged too much, he wouldn't be able to explain the origin of the exquisite grass, right? If this was known by the Imperial Thunder Sect disciples, it would be troublesome. Another disciple is here. Just as Xiaohua was pondering, the surrounding disciples whispered again. Sure enough, Shanghua sect, Kunlun sect, and Nanming sect also came to the square under the lead of the Taiqing sect disciples. Good, finally everyone is here. Xiaohua watched these disciples enter the pavilion, then put his attention on the things on the ground. However, there were many things in this square, and there were also many disciples who came to look for things they wanted. How could Xiaohua see them one by one? After walking for the time it took to drink a cup of tea, he still didn't see any gold leaf. Xiaohua couldn't help but feel vexed. This Buddhist thing. Why is it so hard to find? Before, when I didn't know, I could find it easily, but now I can't find even one. Could it be that the gold leaf is scattered in my country of Shi? Oh right, how could this young master forget to use Buddhist awareness? It's not allowed to use divine awareness to search a large area. Even foundation establishment cultivators can't find Buddhist awareness. Why not use it? Xiaohua slapped his forehead as he came to a realization. Then he released his Buddhist awareness. However, just as his Buddhist awareness spread out for several meters, A similar Buddhist awareness swept over. Chapter 1607. It was the same Buddhist sense, but it was much stronger than Xiaohua's Buddhist sense. Xiaohua felt that this Buddhist sense was extremely viscous, like goat's milk. Compared to it, his Buddhist sense was like clear water. Ouch! Xiaohua was shocked and quickly withdrew his Buddhist sense. However, it was already too late to withdraw at this time. That powerful Buddhist consciousness followed the withdrawal of Xiaohua's Buddhist consciousness, and immediately locked onto Xiaohua. This is bad. Xiaohua hastily looked around, wanting to find a place to hide. He even wanted to fly away. However, there were many disciples participating in the Feather Immortal Assembly. Although it wasn't bustling, it was still very lively. Where could he find a place to hide? What should I do? Just as he was thinking, Xiaohua saw a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator in the distance. He was staring at him with bright eyes as he walked over unhurriedly. A late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator? Xiaohua immediately gave up on the idea of escaping. If it was an early or middle-stage Foundation establishment cultivator, Xiaohua might have been able to escape using the hibernating lightning escape. However, he was helpless against a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator. The slowly approaching cultivator was tall and wore a light-colored Taoist robe. His hair was as white as snow, and there was a light golden Taoist crown on his head. Looking at the cultivator's appearance, he had a red face and two thick black broom eyebrows. Under his eyebrows was a pair of eyes staring at Xiaohua, full of astonishment. When Xiaohua's eyes met with the cultivator's, he felt a sharp pain in his eyes. He couldn't help but look away as panic rose in his heart. The cultivator walked in front of Xiaohua and didn't stop. He transmitted his voice in a low voice. "Follow me." Xiaohua didn't dare to disobey. He could only lower his head and follow the cultivator into the crowd. The cultivator separated the crowd and walked towards the north side of the plaza. Occasionally, a few disciples would bow and greet him as martial uncle. When they reached the edge of the plaza, the cultivator transmitted his voice again. "Wait here for a moment. Later, look for me in this direction. I have something to ask you. Don't have any crooked thoughts. Since you've entered the bright realm, I can find you no matter what." "Yes, I understand." Xiaohua turned around and walked a few steps to the side, pretending to look at the things on the side. The cultivator didn't reply. He walked out of the square and entered the forest outside. After a short while, he disappeared without a trace. Xiaohua absent-mindedly looked at the silent bargaining of the people beside him for a while. Seeing that it was about time, he turned around and was about to leave when a very familiar, yet somewhat probing voice sounded from the side. Xiaohua?" Xiaohua stared blankly and looked over. He saw a cultivator with a storage bag in his hand staring at Xiaohua from the side of the grid. "Zhuo Qingyuan? Senior Zhuo?" Xiaohua was stunned. In his heart, Zhuo Qingyuan should have reached the Foundation establishment realm a long time ago, and his cultivation should be the same as Li Zongbao's. So, how could he possibly appear in the Feather Immortal Assembly? But when Xiaohua looked at Zhuo Qingyuan's cultivation, he immediately understood that Zhuo Qingyuan was still at the peak of the 12th layer of qi refining. From the looks of it, Zhuo Qingyuan had also come here in search of a fortuitous encounter that would allow him to enter the Foundation establishment realm. Senior Zhuo. Xiaohua quickly walked a few steps forward and bowed. "Long time no see. How are you, Senior Zhuo?" Zhuo Qingyuan put away the storage bag and said with a bitter smile, "I was blind. I didn't expect fellow Taoist Xiao to already be at the late stage of qi refining." "I wouldn't dare," Xiaohua hurriedly smiled apologetically. "I didn't deliberately hide it that day." Xiaohua still wanted to explain to Zhuo Qingyuan, but the latter waved his hand and said with a smile, "Needless to say, who doesn't have secrets? I am not a curious person." "Thank you for your understanding, Senior Zhuo," Xiaohua said with a smile. "Senior Zhuo is also here to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly, right?" "Haha, Junior Xiao, what are you asking? If I'm not here to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly, then what am I doing here?" Zhuo Qingyuan looked at the disciples walking past him and sighed. "You didn't see, the last time Junior Xiao came to my Xuanyan school, I was already at the 12th layer of qi refining. After all these years, Junior Xiao has already recovered his cultivation, but I am still at the late stage of the 12th layer of qi refining. If I didn't come to the Feather Immortal Assembly to look for an opportunity, what else could I be doing? Xiao Hua was sad. Of course, Zhuo Qingyuan relied on the embryonic breathing pill to barely enter the 12th layer of qi refining. Foundation establishment was probably even more difficult. Junior Xiao, which sect are you in now? Zhuo Qingyuan looked at the Taoist robe Xiao Hua was wearing and asked, why are you participating in the Feather Immortal Assembly when you're just at the early stage of qi refining? I was lucky enough to enter the Imperial Thunder sect, and I'm also participating in the Feather Immortal Assembly this time by chance, Xiao Hua explained. Then he looked left and right and said in a low voice, I have some matters to attend to, so I'll pay a visit to Senior Zhuo when I return. Okay, then go. Zhuo Qingyuan waved his hand. That's right, Senior Zhuo then? Xiao Hua asked in a low voice, but his eyes were fixed on Zhuo Qingyuan's eyes, afraid that regret would appear in his eyes. Oh, Junior Xiao. Zhuo Qingyuan said with a smile. Junior Xiao has already come out of seclusion, and his life is in good condition. That's great. Xiao Hua felt a burst of joy in his heart, and Xiao Mao's sincere smiling face appeared in his mind. Zhuo Qingyuan looked left and right, then transmitted his voice. Moreover, Junior Zhao's cultivation has improved greatly, and he's already at the 9th layer of qi refining. Ah? 9th layer of qi refining? Xiao Hua knew that Xiao Mao's explosive increase in cultivation was definitely due to the fire essence flame crystal, so it wasn't strange, but he still said with extreme shock. Naturally, he's at the 9th layer of qi refining. Zhuo Qingyuan's face also revealed a joyful expression. How many years has it been? Junior Xiao broke through 5 layers of qi refining in one go? I really don't dare to believe it. Zhuo Qingyuan chuckled. Junior Xiao, if you don't believe me, you can come to my Xuanyan school to take a look. Junior Xiao probably really wants to see you. Xiao Hua secretly curled his lips. Xuanyan school? Good boy, if there's nothing, I won't walk right into a trap. Yet he said with a smile. Of course, I'll definitely go when I's training. After Xiao Hua finished speaking, he cupped his hands and walked towards the edge of the plaza, and similarly entered the forest. Xiao Hua didn't dare to release his Buddhist sense. Sure enough, after walking forward for the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, that cultivator was standing with his hands behind his back beside a stream. What's your name? Which sect are you from? That cultivator turned his head and transmitted his voice. Disciple Xiao Hua, from the Imperial Thunder sect of the state of Xi. Xiao Hua didn't dare to conceal anything, and replied respectfully. This relic of yours is a family heirloom? How many years have you practiced it? Disciple is a loose cultivator. This relic disciple has fumbled, and practiced it for 20 years. That cultivator raised his brow and said with a smile. Not bad, although you've practiced this relic incorrectly. To actually be able to practice Buddhist sense without anyone's guidance is indeed difficult for you. Practicing the relic incorrectly? Xiao Hua stared blankly. It seems. I've practiced it completely according to the exquisite palette scripture, without the slightest deviation. Senior, please give me some pointers. Where did disciple practice incorrectly? Xiao Hua's eyes turned as he transmitted his voice. This old man's cultivation method is different from yours. How can I give pointers? Moreover, this old man also practiced according to a secret manual of the Buddhist sect. I reckon it's only slightly more complete than yours. That cultivator said with a smile. However, from my cultivation experience, Buddhist sense and divine sense are the same. This old man cultivated from qi refinement to foundation establishment, and my divine sense became increasingly dignified, so my Buddhist sense must be the same. Your Buddhist sense is as light as a feather, like a cool breeze, so naturally you've practiced it incorrectly. And perhaps your cultivation method is of a low rank, so the relic you've refined is also lowly. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. Disciple didn't know before, and always thought that the Buddhist sect's cultivation method was the same as the cultivation method. Only later did I gradually realize the difference, but it was already too late. You're also lucky to be able to come across a cultivation method left behind by the Buddhist sect, And even learn about the Buddhist sect. That cultivator sneered. The most fortunate thing is that you actually weren't discovered by the masters of the cultivation sects. What? Don't tell me. Xiaohua suddenly thought of a helpless expression. And of course he wanted to say something but hesitated. There's nothing difficult about it. That cultivator said decisively. As long as you were discovered, you absolutely wouldn't have any chance of survival. Is this serious? Xiaohua's complexion changed dramatically. That cultivator raised his eyes to look into the distance and sneered. The struggle between Buddhism and Taoism isn't just serious. The struggle between Buddhism and Taoism? What do you mean? Xiaohua was even more puzzled. That cultivator waved his hand. Don't ask so much, this old man also doesn't know. If this old man hadn't occasionally flipped through these matters in the pile of old books in the Kunlun Palace, and had a little understanding, I'm afraid I also wouldn't have known the crucial points. That's right, I am Kunlun Sect's Hanju. Greetings, Martial Uncle Hanju. Xiaohua bowed in greeting. Do you know why this old man called you over? Hanju nodded. Xiaohua shook his head. This disciple is stupid, this disciple doesn't know. This disciple only knows it's because of Buddhist awareness. This old man has always been looking for you, but after searching for almost 100 years, I finally found you, a cultivator who cultivated Buddhist awareness. Yes, Xiaohua answered, and then he transmitted his voice. Don't tell me it's very difficult to cultivate Sariras. I don't know if it was difficult or not when Buddhism was flourishing in the past. But now that Buddhism has already been exterminated, the cultivation methods left behind are all incomplete, even inferior to true cultivation methods. Wanting to use them to cultivate Buddhist awareness is simply as difficult as ascending to the heavens. No, it's even harder than cultivating to nascent soul. Xiaohua naturally understood. There were originally very few cultivators who cultivated Buddhism, and those who could condense Sariras and cultivate Buddhist awareness were naturally even fewer. There was nothing strange about this. Don't tell me this cultivator wants to take this young master as a disciple. Pass on the Buddhist cultivation method. He cultivates to this young master? An unimaginable thought appeared in Xiaohua's mind. Xiaohua, do you think spiritual force is better or Buddhist awareness is better? Hanju suddenly asked. Naturally, spiritual force is better. Xiaohua's eyes turned, and he smiled apologetically. Hanju also didn't find it strange and he smiled. Your Imperial Thunder sect has many methods to control spiritual force, so you naturally say spiritual force is better. If you obtain the method to control Buddhist awareness, you'll know. Many times, spiritual force is far inferior to Buddhist awareness. As he spoke, he reached out with his hand, took out a dazzling golden object, and threw it to Xiaohua, and transmitted his voice. This is the method to control Buddhist awareness, take a look. Chapter 1608. This Xiaohua took the golden object with some surprise, but before he could take a closer look, Hanju frowned and waved his hand. Someone's coming. Put this golden object away. When you have time, use your Buddhist awareness to take a look. I'll come find you when I have time. After he finished speaking, he flung his sleeve and his body swayed strangely. He used an unknown escape technique and disappeared without a trace. Xiaohua clapped his hands and stored the golden anai into his space. Just as he walked to the stream and sat down cross-legged, two silhouettes flew over from the plaza. One of them, a 10th layer qi refining cultivator, respectfully landed in front of Xiaohua. He bowed and said with a smile, "Senior Martial Brother, why are you here instead of exchanging things at the plaza?" Xiaohua raised his head and looked at that disciple, then looked at the early stage foundation establishment disciple flying in the air. He said with a smile, "I just had a sudden feeling at the assembly and wanted to find a place to meditate. Because I didn't have time to return to the pavilion, I found this place to meditate first. Did I violate your sect's taboo?" "That's not it," the Qi refining disciple said very warmly. "I'm very happy that Senior Martial Brother was able to make a breakthrough at the Feather Immortal Assembly. However, this bright realm is born from magic treasures. There are many unknown dangers in many places. For safety's sake, it's best for senior martial brother to stay in your room. What about here? Xiaohua looked around and asked with a smile. The Qi refining disciple looked back at the foundation establishment disciple. Seeing the latter nod slightly, he said, Senior martial brother, if you want to meditate here, you can. However, don't go any further. When senior martial brother finishes meditating, you'd better return to the square as soon as possible. Thank you for the reminder, junior martial brother. Xiaohua cupped his hands and continued to meditate. Seeing that Xiaohua was unwilling to leave, the two disciples didn't say anything else and flew away. They wanted to look for Kunlun Sek's frost bamboo again. Xiaohua sat next to the stream. Although his face was as calm as water, his thoughts were rippling like the stream in front of him. This frost bamboo. Could it be that it really wants to guide my Buddhist cultivation? It's possible. Didn't you hear what he said? He searched for 100 years before he finally found someone like me who had cultivated the Buddhist consciousness. Thinking about it carefully, it's normal. The rainbow epiphyllum used to make my Buddha Sarira has been growing for who knows how many years. If it was placed on someone else, it would be impossible to find it. But, Xiaohua said but for a long time, but he didn't say anything. He felt that something wasn't right. He always felt that there was no such thing as a free lunch in this world, but he couldn't figure out what was wrong. Forget it, forget it. Let's wait and see, Xiaohua thought to himself. After the Feather Immortal Assembly, I'll have to return to the Imperial Thunder Sect. Hanzhu is only a Kunlun Sect Foundation establishment cultivator. No matter how bold he is, he won't find the Eastern Ridge Medicinal Garden, right? My practice of Buddha's Sarira is a great taboo in the cultivation world. Isn't it the same for him? If I don't dare to say it, he wouldn't dare to say it either. After thinking about it, Xiaohua's heart calmed down. He stayed in the mountains and rivers for a while before returning to Yi. At this time, there were even more people in the square, and there were many things. However, Xiaohua didn't have the mood to explore. He only found a few things that seemed to have some background and asked. The other party all opened their mouths like lions, asking for either foundation establishment pills or cultivation methods. Xiaohua lost the slightest interest and turned back to the pavilion. Just as he entered the pavilion, he bumped into Yuanbo and Minggu. The two of them looked a little unnatural. Yuanbo smiled and said, Junior brother Xiao, why are you back so soon? Why didn't you find anything good? The things in EG are too rare. Every opening is frightening. I was originally a rogue cultivator. How can I have these spirit stones? It's better to come back and hide in peace. That's easy. Yuanbo pulled Xiaohua's sleeve and said, Junior brother Xiao, follow me. Whatever you like, just tell me. I'll help you. Ha! Xiaohua was stunned. After joining the Imperial Thunder Sect, he had never seen Yuanbo so affectionate. Why did he suddenly change today? I'm afraid that's not good. Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand. I'm afraid I can't repay senior brother's enthusiasm. It's fine, it's fine. Yuanbo smiled and said, You and I are from the same sect. This is nothing. Of course. If junior brother Xiao feels apologetic, you can let me comprehend the flying speed method. Xiaohua pulled his sleeve back from Yuanbo's hand and said with a smile, I suddenly felt something and want to go back to the quiet room to comprehend it. I won't accompany you too. Excuse me. Watching Xiaohua's back disappear into the quiet room's restriction, Minggu sneered. Forget it. A lousy rogue cultivator. Refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit. Why bother with him? I gave you face, but you didn't want it. Yuanbo also sneered. Junior brothers, who are you talking about? Wang Yunxiao's voice sounded. He had just returned from outside the square. It's fine, it's fine. Minggu smiled apologetically. We were just grumbling blindly. Wang Yunxiao glanced at Xiaohua's quiet room and transmitted his voice. When did Xiaohua return? Yuanbo's eyes turned and he also replied. He just returned. Why? Why did senior brother Wang mention this? Come with me. Wang Yunxiao's face showed a trace of strangeness. He waved his hand and brought the two into the quiet room. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, The three people's faces carried a trace of strangeness and a trace of a smile. When they came out of the quiet room and passed by Xiaohua's quiet room, they looked at each other, and a trace of pride appeared on their faces. How did Xiaohua, who was in the quiet room, know about this? In the range of Xiaohua's Buddhist sense, the golden eye was suffused with a golden brilliance, revealing the light and shadow of a thick book. As Xiaohua's Buddhist sense flipped, the book's pages were also flipped one by one. As he flipped, Xiaohua's face gradually showed a dignified expression. When he had roughly finished reading the book slowly closed. The light and shadow on the book disappeared, and it returned to a thin golden leaf. This golden leaf was a bit similar to Xiaohua's Buddhist leaf. Xiaohua waved his hand, and the golden eye was stored in the space. Xiaohua frowned and looked straight ahead, thinking. What is recorded in the golden eye is the control of Buddhist sense and the magical powers of Buddhist cultivation. It's the real deal. However, the content seems to be divided into 2 volumes. This is only the first volume. Hanju didn't say it clearly. Is he trying to keep me in suspense? Or does he want me to cultivate? How can I not eat a piece of meat that is delivered to my door? Xiaohua made a decision in an instant and thought. I'll first learn how to hide Buddhist sense. Fortunately, there are no nascent soul cultivators in this feather immortal assembly, and no golden core cultivators who know how to detect Buddhist sense. Otherwise, I would have lost my life long ago. Xiaohua sat cross-legged with a solemn look. The swastika between his eyebrows flashed faintly, and the Buddha Sarira outside his Niwen palace also emitted a faint Buddhist light. Outside the pavilion, in the square on the west side, which was very close to the pavilion of the Imperial Thunder Sect, a dozen handsome men and beautiful women in bright clothes were chatting casually with smiles on their faces. At the same time, their eyes were wandering around the items in the cubicles. They were the disciples of the Huanhua sect. At the front, Fairy Hongxia, whose face was as cold as frost, exuded a layer of coldness. This coldness seemed to be born from her bones and faintly repelled people thousands of miles away. However, it was also this coldness that attracted the gazes of many male disciples, causing many disciples to easily shift their gazes away from the cubicles and stick to her picturesque and fairy-like features. Fairy Hongxia did not care about this at all. Her bright eyes wandered and fell on a broken jade ruby on the cubicle in front of her. Before Fairy Hongxia could stop, Yun Jicheng, who had been observing Fairy Hongxia from the side, took a step forward and said loudly to the disciple in the cubicle, "Junior brother, how much do you want to pay for this jade ruby?" That disciple looked at the disciples of the Huanhua sect and said with a smile, "Senior brother, this jade ruby is a magic treasure. It's just that it's a bit broken. Of course, with my cultivation level, I'm afraid I don't know about it. I want to exchange this thing for 10 foundation establishment pills. Senior brother, I wonder. You're too greedy, aren't you?" Before Yun Jicheng could say anything, a disciple at the side shouted first. I want this price. If you don't like it, you can go elsewhere." That disciple did not get angry, and only said with a smile. Yun Jicheng did not say anything, and only glanced at Fairy Hongxia. Fairy Hongxia did not say anything and only frowned and looked carefully at the cubicle. Thinking that he had figured out Fairy Hongxia's thoughts, Yun Jicheng revealed a smile and thought to himself, "Junior sister Hongxia has walked for so long and did not even stop at a single cubicle. She actually stopped in front of this jade ruby. She must like it. As for whether this thing is worth 10 foundation establishment pills or not, would I care?" Then he cupped his hands and said, "Junior brother, foundation establishment pills, let's not talk about it. I don't think anyone will take out that thing in this trade fair. We sincerely want it. How many spirit stones do you want to make a deal?" "Great." That disciple clapped his hands and laughed. He rolled his eyes and told Yun Jicheng the price. Others did not know how much this was, but when they saw the slight change in Yun Jicheng's expression, they naturally knew that it was not a small number. Sure enough, Yun Jicheng transmitted his voice again. After a while they seemed to have reached an agreement. When Yun Jicheng took out his storage bag and was about to hand it over to that person, Wang Yunxiao and the other 2 quickly walked out from the pavilion of the Imperial Thunder Sect. When Fairy Hongxia saw people coming out from the pavilion, her eyes flickered. However, when she saw that they were unrelated people, she shifted her gaze away. She did not linger and walked to another place. Junior sister Yun Jichong held the jade rui that he had just exchanged and chased after her. As he walked, he shouted, "I have exchanged for the jade rui. What do you think?" However, Fairy Hongxia only turned her head slightly and reached out her hand to take the jade rui. After looking at it for a while, she handed it over without saying a word. "Junior sister, this is what you want. What's wrong? Is it not to your liking?" Yun Jichong did not take it seriously and kept the jade rui. He smiled and said, "It's okay. There are many things in this square. There must be something that you like." At this moment, a few disciples who looked like elegant young masters came over. The one in front was not inferior to Yun Jichong. When that disciple saw Fairy Hongxia, his eyes lit up. He walked a few steps forward and cupped his hands. "I am Su Fu from the Immortal Ascension sect. Greetings to this fairy." Chapter 1609. Seeing this, Fairy Hongxia looked at Su Fu from head to toe. She didn't want to talk to him, but then she remembered that they were all disciples from different sects who came to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly. She cupped her hands and said, "I don't deserve to be called fairy." Then, she walked past Su Fu without introducing herself. However, Su Fu raised his hand and stopped Fairy Hongxia. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, Fairy Hongxia. They are Wu Qiming and He Shoujing from my sect. They are two of the most powerful cultivators in Ming Kingdom. They would like to share their experiences with Fairy Hongxia." Then the two disciples beside Su Fu walked in front of Fairy Hongxia and blocked her way. They cupped their hands and said, "I've heard of Fairy Hongxia's name for a long time. Now that I've met you today, you really live up to your reputation. The path to immortality is long and we cultivators should help each other. Since Fairy Hongxia has come to Ming Kingdom, we should be the hosts." Looking at his attitude, it was almost as if he was a hooligan in the mortal world who took liberties with women. Fairy Hongxia could not help but be taken aback. She had never met such a shameless cultivator. Naturally, before Fairy Hongxia could say anything, Yun Jiechong stepped in front of Fairy Hongxia and sneered, "I've heard of the reputation of the Immortal Ascension sect even though I'm far away in Xi. I never thought that the disciples of the Immortal Ascension sect would be so shameless as to block the way. I am talking to Fairy Hongxia. What does that have to do with you?" Su Fu narrowed his eyes and stared at Yun Jiechong. "You're just a disciple of Qi Refining Level 12. How dare you be so arrogant in Ming Kingdom?" Yun Jiechong snorted. "I'm a disciple of Qi Refining Level. Are you a senior of Foundation Establishment Level?" "I don't want to." Su Fu waved his hand and pointed at Fairy Hongxia. Just as he was about to speak, a cold snort came from behind him. Then an extremely cold pressure enveloped Su Fu and the other two disciples. A voice so cold that ice could fall from it said, "A good dog doesn't block the way. A bad dog that blocks the way. I just arrived in Ming Kingdom, and I've already met such a vicious dog. Taiching sect is really useless. If you have any grudges, take them out during the Feather Immortal Duel tomorrow. Why are you doing this? Eyes are tainted for no reason." Su Fu, Wu Qiming, and He Shoujing were terrified. They did not even have the strength to turn around. Yin Guichong and Fairy Hongxia looked up and saw a young cultivator with a head full of white hair. His face seemed to be frosty as he slowly walked over. He was actually a Foundation Establishment senior. Needless to say, this Foundation Establishment cultivator was Li Zongbao of the Utopia faction, who had made a breakthrough in the Leeching Treasure Mirror. "Greetings, senior." Fairy Hongxia, Yun Guichong, and the others immediately bowed. Li Zongbao nodded his head and scanned the crowd. His gaze lingered on Fairy Hongxia's face for a moment longer before he walked past them. "My fellow cultivator." After Li Zongbao left, Yun Guichong quickly grabbed a disciple of the Utopia faction behind Li Zongbao and asked in a low voice, "Who is this senior?" The apprentice of the Utopia faction smirked and said proudly, "Who else could it be? Naturally, I'm the youngest Foundation Establishment cultivator in the cultivation world." Li Zongbao of the Utopia faction? Yin Guicheng could not help but exclaim. But then he realized it was inappropriate and quickly said with a smile, "So it's Senior Li of the Utopia faction. No wonder, no wonder." The apprentice of the Utopia faction did not blame him, and followed Li Zongbao. After Li Zongbao left, Su Fu and the others could naturally move their hands and feet. At this time, the three of them were not in the mood. They looked at each other, and left dejectedly. Fairy Hongxia straightened up, and looked at Li Zongbao's tall and straight back, who was gradually disappearing into the crowd. She saw his striking white hair, and her eyes were filled with extraordinary splendor. She thought to herself, "The youngest foundation establishment cultivator? That's not necessarily true." After that, Fairy Hongxia also lost interest and went back to the pavilion alone. On the morning of the second day, as soon as a corner of the rising sun appeared from the east, the moving sound of music could be heard from within the radiant realm. Soon after, countless celestial birds flew up from the surroundings of the square and began to dance gracefully. The sky was overflowing with all kinds of colors, and it was extremely gorgeous. The 12 cultivation sects of the Shi state, the Lian state and the Meng state stood on 3 sides of the square, respectively. The apprentices of the Taiqing sect stood below the high platform at the head of the square. A thunderous sound rang out, and from the eastern side of the square, a beam of orange light rose into the air. From the light, more than 20 people slowly flew over. They were the main envoys and vice-envoys of the various sections. The first to fly over was a cultivator in the later stage of the Golden Core realm. He was not tall and had 2 extremely long eyebrows. He was holding a golden horsetail whisk in his hand. The cultivator flew to the sky above the high platform and landed slightly. He said loudly, "I, Deming, am here to welcome all the disciples of the various sects to the feather immortal meet of the Taiqing sect." The apprentices did not dare to be negligent. They all bowed and said in unison, "Greetings, Senior Deming." Deming swung the horsetail whisk. In the square, the 200 or so apprentices all felt as if they were supported by a pair of hands. They slowly straightened up. Then, Deming said with a smile, "The foundation establishment stage is the first checkpoint on the path of cultivation. It is also the beginning of the true cultivation. I also started my cultivation from the qi refining realm. Naturally, I know how difficult it is. Although all of you are qi refining realm cultivators, the heavy responsibility of the future development of each sect is on your shoulders. Maybe in a few hundred years, one of your apprentices will be like I and achieve the Golden Core realm. Then he will stand in the sky and say the same thing to the qi refining disciples. I don't have much to say. I only hope that all of you will remember that the path of cultivation is never a smooth one. Thank you for your guidance, Senior." The apprentices bowed again and said. Then Deming flew back a little. Another cultivator of the Taiqing sect flew forward. He was an early Gold Core realm cultivator. That cultivator waved his hand and said, "I, Rinju, am the host of this feather immortal meet. This time, 294 apprentices of 13 cultivation sects from the Meng country, the Lian country, and the Shi country will participate. Just like the previous feather immortal meets, you will be divided into 8 groups to compete. For the sake of fairness, the disciples of the same sect in each group will not fight each other. Therefore, if you win, you will get 3 points. If you lose, you will get no points." Rinju spoke frankly and confidently, explaining the specific rules of the competition. Xiaohua and the apprentices of the Thunder Controlling sect were in a corner of the square. They did not listen attentively. He had already made preparations. As soon as he got on the stage, he would check the cultivation of his opponent, and then be ready to admit defeat at any time. This kind of experience was not very beneficial to him. Moreover, he would have to pay with his life. It was really not worth it. He did not understand why Qian Diheng, whose cultivation was only in the middle of the 12th level of the qi refining realm, was so keen to come to the feather immortal meet. The Taiqing sect is really generous. Just the compensation is foundation establishment pills. What an unexpected gain. Xiaohua thought to himself as he closed his eyes slightly to comprehend the Buddhist sense concealment method that he had just obtained yesterday. At this time, Renju's voice came again. 4 apprentices will be selected from each group. A total of 32 apprentices will enter the final competition. These 32 apprentices will be randomly arranged in a random order. There can only be one winner in each competition. Then, the 16 apprentices who won will be arranged in a random order again. In this way, the first, the second, and the second, the third, and the third. Just like in the past, the first 32 apprentices of the Feather Immortal Meat will be rewarded. The first, second, and third will be rewarded with magic treasures, cultivation methods, and magic tools respectively. The first has the right to choose first. The second will be ranked after the first. The last two apprentices will have to depend on luck. After Renju finished explaining the general rules, Renju flew to the side and waved her hand. A strange brilliance appeared on the high platform below her. However, the item within the formation was still not revealed. Renju said with a smile, "This is a novel item that my Taiching sect has recently obtained. It is specially taken out as a reward for the Feather Immortal Meat this time. After the top 4 apprentices of the Feather Immortal Meat are ranked, the top 32 apprentices will compete to obtain this item. Whoever wins in the end will obtain this item. As for what this item is, please allow me to keep you in suspense. I will reveal it in the final competition." Keeping me in suspense? Xiaohua shrugged and laughed inwardly. Daojing is like this, and Renju is also like this. Why are all the cultivators of the Taiching sect so interesting? Alright, disciples, although the rewards of the Feather Immortal Meat are generous, breaking through to the Foundation Establishment realm is your ultimate goal. Therefore, this Feather Immortal Meat is the same as before. Life and death are not allowed. Moreover, the illusion of the competition will not be opened before the time limit is up. If any of you feel that your strength is insufficient, you can activate your magic tablet and choose to give up when the illusion is opened. Also, any disciple who can break through to the Foundation Establishment realm during the competition must immediately withdraw from the Feather Immortal Meat. Oh, there is a time limit for the competition? Xiaohua was stunned. He was prepared to give up as soon as he entered the illusion. Once there was a time limit, he had no choice but to give it his all. At this moment, a brilliant sword light suddenly flashed from outside the square and pierced towards Renju. All the apprentices in the square saw this and couldn't help but gasp. They thought to themselves, which cultivator is so arrogant? He actually dares to sneak attack a gold core cultivator in front of so many other cultivators? When they looked at Renju again, there was no fear on her face. Instead, there was a kind of astonishment and a kind of joy. She just stretched out her hand and pinched casually. That sword light was not what the apprentices thought. It was easily pinched by Renju. Then a clear voice came from the sword light. Zhang Yuhe and Zhang Yutong of the Xianjian sect of the Huan country are here to pay a visit to the fellow cultivators of the Meng country, the Lian country, and the Shi country. A flying sword message? A disciple of the Heavenly Thunder Palace in front of Xiaohua suddenly exclaimed. This is a sword cultivator of the Huan country then. The knowledgeable apprentices in the square all whispered to each other. Sure enough, Renju looked back at Deming and said loudly, "It has been a long time since a sword cultivator of the Huan country participated in the Feather Immortal Meat. My Taiching sect is really lucky to have a sword cultivator here today. Let us welcome the disciples of the Xianjian sect." As he spoke, he waved his hand, and the sword light flew back. However, a moment later, 2 even more resplendent sword lights, one green and one purple, shot through the air and flew into the air above the square. Chapter 16:10. When the sword light retracted its brilliance, what appeared was 2 small and exquisite female cultivators dressed in tight clothes on the 2 flying swords. The 2 female cultivators were intimidating, like unsheathed swords. The clothes of these 2 female cultivators were naturally different from what Xiaohua usually saw. Their entire bodies were short, and did not have the slightest bit of burden. The appearance of their clothes was also strange, and there were faintly some runes flashing from different places. Looking at the 2 female cultivators, they had snow-white skin, graceful figures, and a head full of black hair that was neatly coiled on top of their heads. This wasn't the most eye-catching thing. What surprised everyone the most was that the two female cultivators had the same figure, the same clothes, and even their bright eyes and white teeth were the same. They were actually a pair of twin sisters. When the two stood there, they looked exactly the same. The two female cultivators activated the sword light under their feet and came in front of Renju and the others. They bowed and saluted. Juniors Zhang Yuha and Zhang Yutong greet the seniors. Renju and the others raised their hands to return the salute. Then Renju looked at them and said curiously, "I am Renju, the host of the Feather Immortal Assembly this time. I have a question that I want to ask." Juniors Zhang Yuha answered the seniors' question. The female cultivator on the left said quickly with a smile, "I see that your cultivation is only at the first stage of the drawing sword realm, which should be the same as my early stage foundation establishment disciples. Why didn't I see a teacher protecting you, and you came all the way to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly of the Three Kingdoms of Cultivation? This seems different from before." Zhang Yuha answered without hesitation. "Although we are at the first stage of the drawing sword realm, in terms of fighting power, we might not lose to your sect's middle stage foundation establishment disciples. Why can't we come to Ming country with such cultivation?" Renjue chuckled. "The attacks of sword cultivators are the envy of us cultivators. However, the distance from the state of Huan to here is more than 10,000 kilometers. Although the two of you have the strength of middle stage foundation establishment, you were able to safely arrive at my Taiqing sect. Although you are both at the first stage of the drawing sword realm, representing the sword cultivators of Huan country with only 2 disciples at the first stage of the drawing sword realm, I'm afraid it's disrespectful to the 3 kingdoms of cultivation. It's also difficult to protect the dignity of sword cultivators, right?" Just as Zhang Yuha was about to speak, the female cultivator who had been silent all this time pulled her arm and said softly, "Junior Zhang Yutong greets Senior Renju. The two of us didn't come here especially to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly, and we only came here to watch the show after we heard the news. We really don't dare to represent our sect or sword cultivators. Senior, please forgive my elder sister's words." "Oh, I see," Renju was enlightened. She smiled and said, It's fine. Even though the sword cultivators of the Huan Nation and the 3 nations of cultivation cultivate different daos, you are still juniors. Since you are able to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly, I still welcome you on behalf of the Taiqing sect and the 3 nations of cultivation. Are you 2 little friends here to observe? Or do you want to participate in the competition?" Fight! Zhang Yuha immediately said. "I have long wanted to see the means of the disciples of the 3 kingdoms." "Elder sister." Zhang Yutong quickly stopped her and said to Renju with an apologetic smile, "Actually, Senior, we came to Ming country for something important, and we happened to run into the Feather Immortal Assembly. That's why we came here to ask for your help." Oh. Hearing that Zhang Yutong and the others had something to ask, Renju didn't dare to make a decision. She turned to Deming. "Renju, you will host the Feather Immortal Assembly. My 2 little friends, please follow I." Deming waved his hand and led Zhang Yutong and Zhang Yuha to the pavilion next to the square. Renju said loudly, "Disciples, please take out your identity cards. The illusion array for the competition is right on the square. The place where your identity cards go will be the place where you will participate in the competition." After saying that, Renju made a gesture toward a place in the square. Pung pung pung, hundreds of sounds were heard. On the square, nearly 100 tricolored lights flew out from the grids in different places. Each of the lights was in the shape of a round ball. The lights were overflowing, and the situation inside couldn't be seen clearly. As soon as Xiaohua took out his identity card, he saw a round ball in the distance. It turned into a beam of light and flew in front of Xiaohua, crashing into his identity card. Xiaohua knew that the illusion array he was going to enter was inside that round ball. At the same time, hundreds of lights crisscrossed on the square. The identity cards of each disciple were connected to the round ball by the corresponding light. When the disciples walked to the front of the round ball, all the lights converged, and the overflowing of the round ball also stopped. The inside of the round ball was either a white cloud, a blue sky, or a vast plain. There were many different scenes. Standing next to Xiaohua was a dark and thin cultivator. His eyes, nose, and ears were very small. He looked like he was in his 20s, but his cultivation was already at the peak of the 12th layer of the qi refining realm. I'm afraid he also took a youth-preserving spirit herb, Xiaohua secretly said in his heart. Seeing Xiaohua looking at him, the cultivator slightly narrowed his eyes. His originally small eyes were almost invisible. Disciples, you just need to stand in front of the illusion array. A light bridge will immediately guide you to enter. The time limit for the competition is half an incense stick. During this time you can't enter or exit the illusion array. Just as Renju's words fell, the round ball emitted a bright light. A thick beam of light shot out from the round ball, and covered Xiaohua, and the disciple next to him. Then the two figures flew into the round ball. After their figures disappeared, two figures about the size of mung beans appeared in the blue sky and white clouds. Xiaohua was drawn into the sphere by the bridge of light. Seeing the sphere getting bigger and bigger, Xiaohua knew that his figure was getting smaller and smaller. When his vision blurred, when he looked again, there was a boundless sky in front of him. White clouds floated around him, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in front of him was also abundant. Where's that cultivator from just now? Xiaohua's heart was moved. He clapped his hands and several defensive yellow talismans appeared in his hands. He urged his magic power to hit his body, and then released his Buddhist sense. Sure enough, in a place extremely far away, the dark and thin cultivator also released his divine sense and carefully searched for Xiaohua. Seeing that the divine sense was about to sweep over, Xiaohua smiled in his heart and thought to himself, "This poor Taoist doesn't want to have a meaningless fight with you. Go ahead and search. This poor Taoist won't keep you company." Thinking this, Xiaohua used the hibernating thunder escape and quickly flew to the other side, wanting to avoid that cultivator's divine sense. However, Xiaohua only flew for a moment before a bright barrier blocked him. The barrier was soft but very firm. Needless to say, this must be the edge of the illusion array. Then, Xiaohua flew all the way down. This time he flew a bit longer than before, but still, he didn't see any land, only a layer of bright barrier. Damn it, why is this illusion array so small? Xiaohua cursed in his heart. He wanted to go to another place to take a look, but the cultivator's divine sense had already caught up. Seeing Xiaohua, the cultivator's face showed a trace of a sinister smile and transmitted a message. "Fellow Taoist, are you trying to escape?" Seeing that he was discovered, Xiaohua didn't panic. He flew into the air and cupped his hands, saying, "You can't say that I'm trying to escape, I just want to fight." "If you don't want to fight, then why did you come to the Feather Immortal Assembly?" The cultivator sneered. "However, with your cultivation in the early stage of qi refinement, if you don't have any life-saving methods, you really shouldn't come to the Feather Immortal Assembly. In our eyes, you're just a point for us to enter the top 32. Fellow Taoist, it's good that you know." Xiaohua cupped his hands. "When the time limit is up, I will immediately withdraw from the illusion array." "Fellow Taoist, good plan." The cultivator gave a thumbs up, but then mocked. "Fellow Taoist, don't you know that no one is allowed to fight in the Feather Immortal Assembly? If I just sit here and chat with fellow Taoist, when the time limit is up, I and fellow Taoist will be removed from the Feather Immortal Assembly." Xiaohua was helpless. He clapped his hand and took the white dust in his hand. He smiled bitterly. "It seems that I have no choice but to fight?" The cultivator's movements weren't slow either. He held a 1-foot-long magic artifact in his hand and sneered. "The Feather Immortal Assembly has such a rule precisely to dispel people like fellow Taoist who try to pass off as genuine. My Tai Ching sect has worked so hard for so long and spent so much effort to hold this Feather Immortal Assembly. How can it be over just because you're here? Fellow Taoist, please report your name." "I am Xiaohua of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Let's see if fellow Taoist's methods are as sharp as your words." Xiaohua chuckled. "I am He Yuan of the Tai Ching sect." After the dark and thin cultivator finished speaking, the magic artifact in his hand shook. A phantom escaped from the stick and flew in front of Xiaohua in the blink of an eye, smashing towards Xiaohua's forehead. Xiaohua also formed a seal in his hand, urging his spiritual power to also throw the purgatory dust into the air. At this time, The purgatory dust was in the shape of a round ball. It spun in the air and emitted an earthy yellow brilliance, sucking the surrounding spiritual energy of the world into the ball. As Xiaohua pointed with his finger, a large ball of light flew out from the earthy yellow brilliance, blocking the incoming phantom. Pung! The rod's shadow collided with the ball's brilliance. Both of them turned into specks of light and slowly drifted down from the sky. He Fengyuan was somewhat surprised. His magic tool was a replica of Tai Ching-sek's famous magic tool, Tai Yi Green Light Rod. It was called Tai Yi Green Light Rod. Although it couldn't compare to Tai Yi Green Light Rod, its power was not small. This first rod was admittedly meant to probe, so he only used 50% of his magic power. According to He Fengyuan's thinking, he should have at least destroyed Xiaohua's magic tool and broken Xiaohua's defense a bit. How could it be blocked so easily? Looking at the white dust above Xiaohua's head, a trace of greed flashed in He Fengyuan's eyes. Needless to say, Xiaohua was only at the initial stage of Qi refinement realm, and dared to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly. This magic artifact was his greatest reliance. Look at Ai's methods. He Fengyuan laughed loudly, and activated his magic power. The Tai Yi green light stick seemed to be very heavy in his hand. Without moving an inch, a light green phantom appeared. After dozens of phantoms appeared, He Fengyuan waved his hand and sent out another hand seal. Those dozens of phantoms actually formed a strange formation and attacked Xiaohua. Chapter 16:11. Do you think I am afraid of you? Xiaohua saw this and was slightly angry. He pointed his finger and the black dust gradually sped up, creating rings of phantoms around it. He Fengyuan, on the other hand, sneered as he recovered his Fa-li at the side. When others saw this pile of phantoms of his, they would use their artifacts to deal with them. Actually, He Fengyuan himself knew that these dozens of phantoms had an extremely mysterious connection, and could seal off all of the opponent's dodging angles. If he could not find the trick and get rid of the few crucial phantoms, the opponent could only be flustered, unable to attend to one thing and lose sight of another, and in the end up being beaten to death. Xiaohua's movements were not slow either. He repeatedly used the speck dust and grabbed a lot of light from the speck dust. Each light was able to destroy a phantom. But just as Fengyuan expected, Xiaohua could not find the trick to dealing with the sky full of rod phantoms. He could only use the earthen yellow light to deal with the different rod phantoms. Puff puff puff, a series of sounds rang out. Under Xiaohua's control, the dozens of phantoms created by the black dust barely blocked the dozens of staff phantoms. With Xiaohua's current Buddhist sense, he could barely do it. Junior brother Xiao is indeed extraordinary. Seeing the first wave of staff phantoms broken by Xiaohua, He Fengyuan was even more shocked. These were dozens of phantoms, and Xiaohua was able to use so many lights to deal with them in such a short time. It showed how extraordinary his divine sense was. Now look at Ai's methods. He Fengyuan once again activated his magic power. Xiaohua couldn't counterattack, and the dozens of staff phantoms once again flew out, attacking like a tidal wave. Xiaohua saw this and knew that although the black dust's counterattack could be effective for a while, if it continued for a long time, he could only be in a defensive position and wouldn't be able to take the initiative. The opponent would eventually find a flaw and defeat him. Thus, he didn't activate the black dust. With a wave of his hand, dozens of top-grade fireball talismans were taken out. He activated his magic power, and guided by his divine sense, they pounced on the dozens of phantoms. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Heat waves surged around Xiaohua, but an astonishing scene appeared. After the heat waves passed, not many of the staff phantoms were destroyed by the fireball talismans. There were still many staff phantoms flying toward Xiaohua from all directions. This is bad. Xiaohua's heart went cold when he saw the shadow in front of him. He didn't know that this Tai Yi azure light was of the metal attribute, and was extremely sharp. It was also a magic tool, so its brilliance was able to block the shadow of the staff. Although the fireball talisman was powerful, it was still a yellow talisman. Its attack couldn't be concentrated, so the Tai Azure Light could easily dodge it. What should we do? Xiaohua was startled, and he hurriedly made a hand seal. The white dust above his head once again emitted an earthen yellow brilliance that enveloped Xiaohua. At the same time, Yifang Yuan's dozens of rod shadows had already struck down. Puff, puff, puff. Each time the staff shadow struck Hengchen's brilliance, the brilliance would waver slightly and be extinguished a little. By the time the staff shadow struck Hengchen's brilliance, 30% of the brilliance had already been extinguished. This still wasn't the worst. Just as the Tai Azure Light Staff phantoms disappeared, Yifang Yuan's magic tool had already been brandished. The third wave of staff shadows had already arrived before Xiaohua's eyes. Xiaohua simply didn't have any chance to activate Hengchen to meet the attack. He could only passively defend. Xiaohua's forte lay in close combat. Admittedly, his magic power surpassed Yifang Yuan's, but his magic tool was inferior. Moreover, he had lost the initiative, so after one wrong move, every step was wrong. Seeing the third wave of staff shadows arrive, Xiaohua instantly made a decision. He simply ignored the staff shadows and allowed them to hit his body with crackling sounds. His body flew up and waved his hand. Just as he was about to take out the spirit crow fire net, a light shadow as thick as a bowl appeared out of thin air. It was precisely the white dust above Xiaohua's head. That white dust swayed twice, and the earthy yellow brilliance around Xiaohua's body immediately withdrew, all of it being absorbed into the white dust. Xiaohua was immediately exposed within the staff shadows. Yifang Yuan, this bastard, he actually had this move. Xiaohua was shocked. How could he still care about taking out the fire net? He hurriedly pointed his finger at the Hengchen again. With a puff sound, a shadow struck Xiaohua's back. The yellow talismans that Xiaohua had sent out earlier were all broken. Xiaohua's body swayed as if he had lost his balance. At this time, another shadow attacked Xiaohua's waist from another angle. Humph, Yifang Yuan, who was far away, unconsciously showed a trace of joy on his face. He gritted his teeth and waved the Tai Azure Light Staff several times. Numerous phantoms appeared and pounced on Xiaohua one after another. An initial stage Qi refinement brat dares to come to the Feather Immortal Assembly. It is your honor to be treated so seriously by I. Yifang Yuan seemed to have expended a lot of energy to activate the artifact. He took out a pill from his storage bag and ate it. He was about to close his eyes and adjust his breathing when the scene in front of him made him dumbfounded. Xiaohua, who had lost his balance, was about to be hit in the waist by a shadow. But at this crucial moment, Xiaohua's body twisted strangely. He simply didn't use any magic power and easily dodged that shadow. Immediately after, Xiaohua's body became even more graceful, even more carefree. In the air, it was as if he was taking a stroll, dodging the overwhelming rod shadows one by one. In Yifang Yuan's eyes, there were no gaps in the rod shadows, but Xiaohua took a step to the left, a step to the right, a step up, a step down, finding countless gaps. Moreover, Xiaohua's footsteps went from unfamiliar to smooth, becoming more and more skillful with each step. Ethereal steps. The name of this footwork appeared in Xiaohua's mind. This ethereal steps seemed to be something that Xiaohua had already recalled in Jingbo City, and gradually recalled it in the battles afterwards. And today, in front of Yifang Yuan's strange rod technique, he had finally completely recovered it. This Yifang Yuan had never seen such a mystical footwork. Moreover, in his divine sense, there was not a trace of magic power fluctuation on Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua got out of the encirclement of the staff shadows and scanned with his divine sense. He snorted coldly. Senior brother, after seeing your methods, shouldn't you see I's methods? Before he finished speaking, Xiaohua suddenly flew over and arrived in front of Yifang Yuan at an extremely fast speed. He also stretched out his hand and took out a pitch-black staff, smashing it towards Yifang Yuan's head. Although Xiaohua was casually swinging the staff, it was different in Yifang Yuan's eyes. This staff seemed to have solidified the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth. As if this staff was born to smash Yifang Yuan's forehead. A kind of fear arose from the bottom of Yifang Yuan's heart. Without thinking, Yifang Yuan also waved the artifact in his hand. Dozens of phantoms shot out again, meeting Xiaohua's demonic spear. Come! Xiaohua shouted loudly, the demonic spear in his hand not changing its downward momentum. Puff puff puff, dozens of sounds rang out in succession. That tiny green light staff's phantoms were smashed apart by the demonic spear like bubbles. With a loud bang, the demonic spear struck the tiny green light staff's main body. An incomparably huge force transmitted over. Yifang Yuan's hand felt a burst of heat. No matter what, he could no longer hold on to the tiny green light staff. His hand loosened, and he was sent flying by Xiao Hua. Yifang Yuan was horrified. He turned around and hurriedly used his magic power to escape. At the same time, his other hand was not slow either. A ring was held in his hand, and under the activation of his magic power, a three-colored brilliance burst out, about to envelop him. How could Xiao Hua allow him to protect himself? Activating the hibernating thunder escape, Xiao Hua instantly caught up to Yifang Yuan. The demonic spear swung and struck Yifang Yuan's back. With a pung sound, the tricolored brilliance that had just appeared was dispersed by Xiao Hua, and the demonic spear also struck Yifang Yuan's back. It hurts. Yifang Yuan screamed loudly. A mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth, as his entire body was sent flying by Xiao Hua. If it was a battle of magic power and artifacts, Yifang Yuan could still contend for victory with Xiao Hua. But now that Xiao Hua had closed in on him, Yifang Yuan could only be casually crushed by Xiao Hua. Eat this young master's staff again. Xiao Hua sneered. The demonic spear struck out like a staff again, this time aiming at Yifang Yuan's forehead. Seeing the pitch-black staff in Xiao Hua's hand stirring up the heaven and earth spiritual energy in the air, instantly enlarging in front of Yifang Yuan's eyes. Yifang Yuan's eyes unconsciously shrunk as a feeling of his liver and guts being torn apart involuntarily emerged. At the same time at this moment, Yifang Yuan felt that death was so close. In just a breath's time, his decades of hard work would turn into water, all of his dreams would turn into bubbles. Yifang Yuan felt a sense of powerlessness facing Xiao Hua. His heart was dead. But at this moment of life and death, Yifang Yuan suddenly had a strange feeling. The surrounding primeval qi abruptly turned sluggish as his heart died, and then began to show signs of condensing. Foundation establishment Yifang Yuan actually showed signs of foundation establishment at the moment of his death. Sigh, unfortunately, it is already too late. Yifang Yuan smiled bitterly. Because Xiao Hua's demonic spear was already on Yifang Yuan's forehead, Yifang Yuan could almost feel the merciless coldness of the spear. But right at this moment, Xiao Hua stopped. The moment the demonic spear struck Yifang Yuan's forehead, Xiao Hua's hand stopped firmly like it was cast from iron. Soon after, Xiao Hua's gentle words entered Yifang Yuan's ears. Senior He, this junior only came to the Feather Immortal Assembly to gain some experience. I have no other plans. Do you believe me now? Yifang Yuan had just escaped from death, and this was the crucial moment of foundation establishment. How could he dare to delay for even a moment? He only had time to say many thanks and quickly put a foundation establishment pill into his mouth. Immediately after, a three-colored cloud descended from the sky, wrapping around Yifang Yuan and sending him out of the illusion formation. Sigh. Seeing Yifang Yuan leave the illusion formation, Xiao Hua sighed. Seeing Yifang Yuan's lifeless expression and the desire in his eyes, Xiao Hua could not help but think of his eldest senior brother Xiangyang. He could not help but feel pity and could not help but put away the demonic spear in his hand. After all, he could not bear to kill a cultivator who had worked hard for decades and was about to reach foundation establishment in his own hands. What a huge loss. Xiao Hua shrugged. I don't know if this Yifang Yuan will bear a grudge, otherwise, I would have found myself a mortal enemy for no reason. That's right, that guy's magic artifact has not been taken away. Since I picked it up, it naturally belongs to me. That guy probably does not have the face to ask me for it back. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua hurriedly released his Buddhist consciousness and searched for the tiny green light rod that was sent flying in the illusion. Outside Xiao Hua's Naiwan Palace, the Buddha's relic with one hand pointing to the sky and the other pointing to the earth was still an illusory outline. The Buddha's light that appeared out of thin air where the heart was did not attract Xiao Hua's attention at all. Chapter 16:12. When Xiaohua contentedly found the Tai green light rod, he activated his tablet and left the illusory formation. The area around him was already filled with Tai Ching sect disciples. Naturally, He Fong Yuan had broken through to foundation establishment in the first round of the competition. This was a highlight of the Feather Immortal Assembly. How could it not attract the attention of Tai Ching sect disciples? However, when they saw a mere Qi refining stage cultivator emerge from the illusory formation, their previous admiration turned into jealousy. Was there even a need to explain further? He Fong Yuan's cultivation level was definitely high and he broke through in the illusory formation. It had nothing to do with Xiaohua. Xiaohua was just a lucky kid in these disciples' eyes. Xiaohua saw the disdain in the disciples' eyes when he came out. They dispersed immediately. How could he not know the reason? Seeing that there was no trace of He Fong Yuan, he must have been taken away by Tai Ching sect's teachers to a quiet place to establish his foundation. Xiaohua snorted coldly and sat down cross-legged, waiting for the second round of the competition. Xiaohua, a gentle voice resounded. Xiaohua heard it and quickly stood up. It was Zhen Qing who was walking over slowly. This area was where Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples were fighting. Zhen Qing naturally knew the dangers within. She was especially attentive towards Xiaohua and the other disciples with weaker cultivation. Earlier, when she saw He Fong Yuan come out, her heart jumped. She was afraid that Xiaohua's corpse would be thrown out by the illusion formation. Only when Xiaohua flew out himself did she relax. "Greetings to Ancestor Zhen," Xiaohua said. No need to be so polite." Zhen Qing waved her hand. "Take the time to rest. There are 4 battles every day. Your cultivation level is slightly lower. You need to be careful." "Disciple understands. Disciple will leave after 15 minutes. Xiaohua said without hesitation. Zhen Qing nodded. "Good. Of course, this experience was good. But it also required one's life. With your cultivation level, you really shouldn't participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly. You need to use your flying technique more." Xiaohua smiled bitterly. "It is not that disciple doesn't want to use it, but the space inside the illusory formation is too small. It seems to restrict flying techniques." Zhen Qing pondered for a moment and said softly, "The purpose of the Feather Immortal Assembly is to test a cultivator's temperament in a life and death situation. If they have intelligence, they will find the opportunity to establish their foundation. You must have seen that Tai Ching sect's disciple suddenly established his foundation. That was why you escaped death. Oh right, do you need to repair your defensive artifact? I can lend you a hand?" Xiaohua felt warmth in his heart. He bowed. "Thank you, Ancestor." Disciple. While he was speaking, the illusory formation beside Xiaohua suddenly flashed with a blood-red brilliance, and with a whoosh sound, a corpse with half of its head smashed was thrown out by the formation. Zhen Qing's expression changed greatly. She ignored Xiaohua and walked over quickly. A few Tai Ching sect's disciples who were patrolling the surroundings also rushed over. The face of the corpse was already blurred, so they couldn't see whether it was a Tai Ching sect's disciple or not. Fortunately, the corpse's clothes were still intact, and it didn't seem to be someone they knew. Zhen Qing's expression relaxed a bit. Then the ball of the illusory formation flickered a few more times, and a female cultivator in the late stage of the 12th layer of the Qi refining realm flew out. When Xiaohua took a closer look, he found that it was Li Xiaoxiao, a disciple of the Thunder Palace. At this moment, Li Xiaoxiao's face was a bit pale. She sat down cross-legged the moment she landed on the ground, took out a medicinal pill, and ate it, then closed her eyes to adjust her breathing. Zhen Qing waved her hand, and a restriction formation surrounded Li Xiaoxiao. The Tai Ching sect's patrolling disciple examined the corpse's Dharma tablet, muttered a few words, and sent out a summoning talisman. Not long after, an early-stage foundation establishment disciple of the Tai Ching sect and Kunlun sect's Hanzhu quickly walked over. Hanzhu looked at the corpse with a gloomy face and nodded slightly. Then the early-stage foundation establishment disciple grabbed the corpse's storage pouch, reached into it, and took out some jade slips and a magic tool from the storage pouch, then handed them to Hanzhu, and then handed the storage pouch to Zhen Qing. Zhen Qing didn't say anything. She just raised her hand and took it. Hanzhu took the jade slips and magic tool, waved his hand, and put them into the storage pouch together with the corpse of the Kunlun sect's disciple. He raised his head and glanced at the crowd, then turned and left. Xiaohua, who was watching from the side, already understood that Li Xiaoxiao won this battle and killed the Kunlun sect's disciple, so the storage pouch of the Kunlun sect's disciple belonged to Li Xiaoxiao. However, the cultivation methods and magic tools inside still had to be returned to the Kunlun sect. As for the pills, yellow talismans and other items inside the storage pouch of the Kunlun sect disciple, they were probably the prize of this battle. All the rules of the Feather Immortal Assembly encouraged the participating disciples to kill. It's no wonder that He Feng Yuan didn't compromise with I. Xiaohua thought to himself. But in his heart, he was thinking about that meaningful glance Hanju had given him when he left. Others might have thought that Hanju had given him a casual glance, but Xiaohua knew that Hanju had given him that glance. As for whether it was a warning, encouragement, or something else, Xiaohua didn't know. Immediately, Xiaohua had a strange thought. This Hanju, he gave the golden puppet to me so generously, could it be that he knew I would definitely win? But then, Xiaohua laughed involuntarily. How could Hanju know he would definitely win? It would be good if he could survive, but if he died, the golden puppet would definitely be handed over to Imperial Thunder Sect's Zhenqing. And Hanju only needed to find a reason to exchange for it, right? This was probably the reason why Hanju wanted to find him after the Feather Immortal Assembly, right? Why is Hanju looking for me? Xiaohua pondered again. Deming sat cross-legged in a rather large quiet room in a large pavilion to the north of the square. He seemed to be deep in thought. Zhang Yuhe and Zhang Yutong had a trace of anxiety on their faces. They seemed to be waiting for Deming's answer. However, when Zhang Yuhe saw Deming's lowered eyebrows, she could not help but say, "Senior Deming, I've already explained the cause of the matter. I wonder if the Taiqing sect can lend a hand?" Deming blinked his eyes and smiled. "I have already sent a message to my sect leader. Before I receive a reply, I'm afraid I can't say anything casually. What do you think, Senior? Junior only wants to hear Senior's opinion." Zhang Yuhe continued. This Deming pondered for a moment and said with a smile, "After all, you two came here on your own, not on behalf of sword cultivators, not on behalf of the Xianjian sect, so my Taiqing sect won't help you in the name of Taiqing sect." Zhang Yuhe and Zhang Yutong were extremely disappointed. They looked at each other, and Zhang Yutong said slowly, "Junior knows your sect is in a difficult position, but the Dark Yin spiritual grass can only be found in the Dark Yin illusory realm of Ming Kingdom. How can we enter the Dark Yin illusory realm with our cultivation? So we can only ask for help from the Taiqing sect. Senior Deming, please be merciful." Deming shook his head slightly. "I don't know why you two want the Dark Yin spiritual grass, but the Dark Yin spiritual grass has few uses, and it is said that it is only useful for female cultivators with Dark Yin body. Therefore, my Taiqing sect won't take a great risk to pick the Dark Yin spiritual grass. What's more, the Dark Yin spiritual grass grows in the most dangerous place in the Dark Yin illusory realm. Doesn't the Taiqing sect have the Dark Yin spiritual grass?" Zhang Yuhe asked directly. "It's not that we don't have it," Deming said with a smile. "My Taiqing sect has also cultivated some Dark Yin spiritual grass, but the Dark Yin spiritual grass can only grow in the Dark Yin illusory realm, where the spiritual qi of heaven and earth is extremely abundant. It doesn't germinate easily in other places. My Taiqing sect has only cultivated a dozen Dark Yin spiritual grass." "Great." Zhang Yuhe clapped her hands and said, "Senior, why don't you exchange one of them for I?" Deming smiled bitterly. "I can't make the decision. It depends on the sect leader's order. Also, you two asked for 3,000 years of age, but the Dark Yin spiritual grass in my Taiqing sect is at most 500 years old. Senior, is there really no way?" Zhang Yuhe asked with a bitter face. "What can I do?" Zhang Yutong stared at Deming for a while and said with a smile, "Senior Deming, you are a person of virtue and prestige, which is what I admire. Don't lie to me and my sister. What we want is the Dark Yin spiritual grass, not the Dark Yin spiritual grass. There are many powerful cultivators in the Taiqing sect. The Dark Yin illusory realm is one of the top 10 dangerous places, but The Tai Ching sect must have the dark Yin spiritual grass from the dark Yin illusory realm. We have traveled thousands of miles, so of course, we have enough sincerity to ask for the dark Yin spiritual grass. As long as your sect can take out the dark Yin spiritual grass of enough age, we will definitely take out the corresponding things to exchange for it. Be careful with your words. Deming didn't take it seriously. He waved his hand slightly and said with a smile, "Your cultivation is not bad, but if others hear it, it may be a little troublesome." Zhang Yu, he said proudly. "If Senior Deming, a gold core stage cultivator, bullies me and my sister, we are naturally inferior. But other cultivators? Then it depends on our means." "Yes, thank you for your reminder, Senior," Zhang Yutong said. "We have our own means to protect ourselves, and to tell you the truth, if something happens to us, the masters of the Xian Sword sect will be the first to know. Whoever did it will also be reported to the sect." At that time Zhang Yutong's words had a double meaning, and Deming laughed it off after hearing it. While they were talking, the restrictive spell in the quiet room flashed slightly. Deming waved his hand, and a dark red messaging talisman flew into his hand. Deming crushed the messaging talisman, and closed his eyes to listen for a moment. Then he looked at Zhang Yuhe and Zhang Yutong's expectant eyes and said with a smile, "My sect leader has ordered that although you two are not sword cultivators, you are still guests from afar. If I can help you, I will naturally help you." "Thank you, Senior. Thank you, Master Qing Su of the Tai Ching sect." Zhang Yutong couldn't help but bow her hands and say, but Deming still shook his head. "My two little friends, don't be anxious, what? Could it be that your sect leader's order? Senior doesn't want to." Zhang Yuhe was anxious. Deming smiled bitterly. "My two little friends, didn't I say it just now? Even if my Tai Ching sect has the Xianyin spiritual grass, it definitely doesn't have the 3,000-year-old medicinal age that you want." "It can't be. 3,000 years. It's really not that long." Zhang Yuhe's disappointment was obviously piled up on her face. Chapter 16:13. Zhang Yutong looked a little disappointed. She smiled apologetically and said, "Senior Deming, actually, the Xianyin spiritual grass that we are looking for is at least 3,000 years old. The most suitable one should be at least 4,000 years old." Sai Deming couldn't help but gasp. He smiled bitterly and said, "Our Tai Ching sect only has one Xianyin spiritual grass that is 2,000 years old. It was found in the Xianyin Mirage by an elder of our sect. If this one doesn't meet your needs, I'm afraid that we won't be able to find a Xianyin spiritual grass of this age in the entire Meng Kingdom. It seems that we have to go to the Xianyin Mirage." Zhang Yutong sighed. She looked at Zhang Yuhe. Both of them were thinking the same thing. There was a trace of decisiveness in their eyes. "My two little friends." Deming quickly waved his hand and said, "The Xianyin Mirage is not a place that you can enter. Even I don't dare to enter. I'm afraid that you won't be able to come out." Although Zhang Yutong and Zhang Yuhe had never been to the Xianyin Mirage, they had heard about the 10 most dangerous places. Naturally, there was such a place in the Huan Kingdom. They knew that there was a slim chance of survival in there. However, both of them were silent at this moment. It seemed that they had already made up their minds. This matter had nothing to do with Deming. However, seeing two young female cultivators throwing their lives into the Xianyin Mirage, Deming couldn't bear it. He thought for a while and said, "How about this? I'll bring the Xianyin spiritual grass from our Tai Ching sect. You can see if it's suitable for you. Then we can make other plans. What do you think?" "Then thank you, Senior," Zhang Yuhe said weakly. "By the way, Senior Deming." Zhang Yutong blinked her eyes. Her bright eyes were like stars in the night sky. She said in a low voice, "I have a presumptuous request. I don't know if I should say it." Deming smiled bitterly and said, "Of course you can." There are 13 cultivation sects from the 3 cultivation countries participating in the Feather Immortal Conference. Do they have the Xianyin spiritual grass? My two little friends, did you think of the Xianyin spiritual grass because of the Feather Immortal Conference? Deming said with a smile. That's right. Zhang Yuhe nodded. Junior thinks that since there are so many people here, there might be someone who has this spiritual herb. Deming smiled bitterly in his heart. He knew very well that these disciples were all at the qi refining stage. Who would have a 3,000-year-old profound Een spirit grass? Even if he did, why would he carry it with him? As long as he was killed, the spirit grass would definitely belong to someone else. Even if he hid it in his own sect, he couldn't bring it to the Tai Ching sect. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that they were afraid of building their foundation at any time, those late-stage aura refining disciples definitely wouldn't have brought even a single foundation establishment pill. However, how could he bear to shatter their beautiful hopes? He pondered for a moment before he said, "The disciples of the various sects are participating in the Feather Immortal Gathering now. How about this? I'll tell the group leaders of the various sects about the two of you and see if they have any methods?" "Thank you, Senior." Zhang Yutong bowed. "If anyone has a 3,000-year-old spirit grass, let them come over. My sister and I will definitely thank you," Zhang Yuha said anxiously. Hearing this, Zhang Yutong's heart skipped a beat. She smiled apologetically and said, "Senior Deming, I still have a request. About the spirit grass. Please don't make it clear. Firstly, my sister and I don't want to cause any trouble. Secondly, we don't want others to have any scruples. Don't you think so?" Deming nodded to himself. That was the reason. If he directly stated that he wanted a 3,000-year-old profound Een spirit grass, there would definitely be others who coveted the two sisters. Even if someone really had a 3,000-year-old profound Een spirit grass, they wouldn't be so tactless as to show it to others. "You're right, Yutong. I will arrange this." Deming stood up and said, "My two little friends are guests from afar. You should take a rest. I will take my leave now." "Farewell, Senior." Zhang Yuha and Zhang Yutong quickly stood up. "Senior, can we see the grand occasion of the Feather Immortal Gathering?" Zhang Yuha asked timidly. Looking at Zhang Yuha's lovely appearance, Deming smiled kindly and said, "Of course. You sword cultivators have participated in it before. You can learn from each other and improve yourselves." "Thank you, Senior," Zhang Yuha shouted excitedly. Then she pulled Zhang Yutong and said, "Let's go, sister. Let's go and watch the show." When Zhang Yuha and Zhang Yutong walked out of the pavilion with Deming and arrived at the square, there were only Tai Ching sect's disciples on duty. There were also the sect leaders and vice-sect leaders. They were looking at the different illusory formations with solemn expressions. After the first round of competition, other than that Fang Yuan, no one else had broken through. Moreover, out of the 13 sects, 3 of them had lost disciples. Not only did they lose pills, spirit stones and yellow talismans, they also lost a lot of face. At this moment, Xiaohua was standing firmly on a grassland. About 100 feet away from him, there was also a late-stage Qi refinement 12th stage female cultivator. That female cultivator was Black Heaven sect's Zhu Beibei. She had an extremely hot body and was wearing a Taoist robe that Xiaohua usually wore. Many parts of her body revealed her fair skin. Xiaohua's gaze could not help but fall on certain parts of her body. Cough cough. Fellow Taoist Zhu, Xiaohua's gaze moved to Zhu Beibei's tender face. He smiled apologetically and said, "I came to the Feather Immortal Assembly to gain experience. I have no other intentions. I will exchange a few moves with Senior Sister. When the time is up, I will leave the illusory formation. How can it be so simple?" Zhu Beibei sneered and waved her hand. A shiny silver lute appeared in her hand. With a flick of her slender fingers, a pleasant sound reverberated in the air. "Sound attack?" Xiaohua frowned. He was laughing in his heart. He was from the Myriad Thunder Valley of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Although he had only been in the Imperial Thunder Sect for a few years, he had been taught the soundless thunder technique. If he could avoid even the sound of thunder, how could this so-called Pipa be inferior to him? "Senior Sister Zhu, don't push me too far." Xiaohua looked strong on the outside but weak on the inside. He shouted in exasperation, "How can this poor Taoist be your opponent?" Since you're here, you should be prepared." Zhu Beibei sneered, and the magic power in her hand surged. Ding ding dong dong. The sound waves attacked Xiaohua in circles. Xiaohua only felt dizzy, and his whole body was out of his control. as if he was a puppet being controlled by someone. Seeing that Xiaohua was under her control, the corners of Zhu Beibei's mouth revealed a trace of ridicule. Although they were both in the 12th layer of the aura refining realm, she was well aware of the difference between the late stage and early stage. Back when she was in the Profound Sky sect, she had used this method to defeat over 100 middle stage aura refining disciples during the same disciple selection. She was very confident in the might of her magic tool. The sound of the pipa continued to entangle Xiaohua. His limbs seemed to be dancing along with the sound of the pipa. Of course, Xiaohua's long limbs didn't look very good. Even Zhu Beibei couldn't help but laugh. She said to herself, "This kid is really clumsy. He wants to come to the Feather Immortal Assembly to take advantage of others? Fortunately, he met me. I'll spare your life today." However, with this level of cultivation, even if he doesn't die today, he'll die tomorrow. Sigh, I really don't know why he came here instead of cultivating in the thunder-controlling sect. As Zhu Beibei spoke, she didn't dare to stop playing the pipa. Then she slowly walked to Xiaohua. She patted her hand and took out a confinement talisman from her storage pouch. She casually activated it with her magic power. It hit Xiaohua's body and immediately confined him. Zhu Beibei used her divine sense to sense that Xiaohua's magic power was confined. Only then did she stop playing the pipa. Then she waved her hand. It seemed like she wanted to take away the storage pouch on Xiaohua's waist. However, after she waved her hand a few times, the storage pouch was tied very tightly. She couldn't take it away. This guy is so stingy. Could it be that there's something good in the storage pouch? Zhu Beibei smiled like a flower. She seemed to have forgotten to be on guard. She quickly stepped forward, reached out, and took the storage pouch. When she looked inside and saw that the storage pouch was almost empty, she couldn't help but spit on the ground. She cursed. What a poor and pedantic guy. As expected of someone at the early stage of the 12th layer of the Qi refining realm, Zhu Beibei hadn't finished speaking when a voice came from beside her ear. "Big sister, you can't insult your little brother like this, right?" That voice was right beside her ear. She could even feel the heat from Xiaohua's mouth. Zhu Beibei stared blankly at first. Then her soul flew out of her body. She really didn't expect that Xiaohua, who she already regarded as a puppet, could actually speak so easily. Moreover, after being confined by her magic tool, he was also confined by the confinement talisman. Zhu Beibei's entire body trembled at first. Then, like lightning, she was about to flee outside. Being so close to Xiaohua, Zhu Beibei had a feeling of insecurity for no reason. Unfortunately, how could she be as fast as Xiaohua? Just as her figure flew into the air, Zhu Beibei felt a huge force coming from behind her neck. It was precisely her neck that was choked. In an instant, a numb feeling attacked her whole body. Moreover, this force was very strange. It was actually able to confine all the true qi in her body, making her unable to use her magic power. "Junior brother Xiao, please spare my life." Zhu Beibei no longer cared about her dignity. She loosened her hand and threw the pipa magic tool on the messy grass. She no longer paid attention to it and shouted with all her might. "Junior brother Xiao, as long as you spare I's life, I am willing to agree to any condition of junior brother." TSK, Xiaohua licked his somewhat dry lips and said with a smile. "Senior sister Zhu, aren't you tempting me? Everything in this illusion formation can be seen from the outside." Zhu Beibei's face flushed red. She didn't think that Xiaohua would say this. She could only clench her teeth and say with difficulty, "If it's possible, senior sister can, huh? Senior sister can give the magic tool and cultivation method to I from the outside?" Xiaohua asked in amazement. Zhu Beibei didn't know whether to laugh or cry in her heart. However, at the same time, her heart also relaxed for no reason. Since Xiaohua said this, she presumably didn't need to use her body to exchange for her life. What's wrong with that? That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.